Philosophical text describes self-destructive love as narcissism, setting a somber tone for the scene.
A hand in a black lace glove rests on the book as the woman ponders.
Adorned with jewelry, the brown-haired woman prepares herself for a significant and likely final confrontation.
A servant informs Madame Freya Russell that the chairman has requested her immediate presence in his office.
She approaches the office doors, noting that she has experienced this specific moment 12 times before.
Touching the book once more, she reflects on the repetitive nature of her cyclical existence. A silver-haired man informs Lorenzo that he will join the chairman in the office very shortly.
Freya strides through the opulent hall, her voluminous red and black gown trailing behind her.
Framed by flowers, her reflection reveals a woman preparing to discard a long-held and exhausting facade. Examining her reflection, she acknowledges the false face she has been forced to wear for years. She turns away from the mirror, ready to face the man she once desperately loved.
Looking out at the grand estate, she decides that her final actions will be for him.
Entering the lavish study, she finds Max Russell preoccupied with paperwork at his large desk.
She stands before him, her calm expression a stark contrast to her historically volatile behavior.
Max looks up from his desk, his cold gaze meeting hers with a sense of weariness.
A heavy silence stretches between them as he hesitates to begin the inevitable, painful discussion.
She waits in silence, showing no trace of the emotional instability he has come to expect. Sitting across from him, she realizes that the confrontation she previously avoided can no longer wait.
Max silently observes his wife, thinking that she looks and feels inexplicably different to him today.
She challenges his unspoken observation, asking him to explain exactly how he perceives her as different.
Max internally debates if she has actually changed or if his own perspective has finally shifted.
He critiques her appearance in his mind, wondering if her strong perfume and meticulous hair signify nervousness.
He takes a breath, preparing to deliver the harsh news he believes will trigger her hysteria. Freya remains entirely composed, flatly commanding Max to say whatever he has come here to tell her. He experiences a surge of discomfort, unable to reconcile her current stillness with the woman he knows. His eyes narrow as he realizes her unusually steady and calm expression is the source of his unease. A memory of her past madness depicts a woman driven to insanity by her obsession with him. Max tenses his hand, gripped by the sudden suspicion that she might be aware of his plans. He reflects on their history, remembering the decades spent locked in a cycle of mutual torment. Finally, Max delivers the cold and blunt request for a divorce, expecting her to react with grief. He anticipates the usual routine of her sobbing, screaming, and throwing a tantrum before clinging to him. Instead of the expected outburst, his surprise grows as she remains entirely silent and unaffected by him. She looks at him without a single word, leaving him to sit in the awkward silence. He becomes defensive, questioning if she truly believes his feelings for her could ever be any different. She shocks him by acknowledging his sincerity, admitting she knows his request for a divorce is genuine. Clutching her chest, the brown-haired woman prepares to respond to the end of her long marriage.
Max stares at her in utter disbelief, his eyes widening at her unexpected and rational response.
Freya smiles brightly, reflecting on the 15 years of obsession that she is finally ready to end. She agrees to the divorce on one condition, marking a turning point in their toxic relationship. Narrative text recalls their high-profile wedding, an event plagued by superstitions and intense public scrutiny.
A portrait shows Freya as a bride, the noble daughter of a family with royal bloodlines.
Another portrait depicts Max, the grandson of a revolutionary hero who once destroyed the existing monarchy. During the ceremony, guests whispered cruel comparisons, mocking the couple as a fundamentally ill-matched pair. Despite the cruel gossip, a younger Freya laughed joyfully, unaware of the future misery of her marriage.
Duke Blanc stands proudly at the wedding, having spared no expense to support his daughter's ceremony.
Freya's bridal profile shows a woman filled with hope, a far cry from her future self. She smiled warmly on her wedding day, genuinely believing in a happy future with her husband. The formal wedding portrait captures a couple who, on the surface, appeared perfect to society. Back in the present, a blonde maid notices Freya's good mood while she prepares for the guy. The maid brushes Freya's long hair, unaware of the massive shifts occurring in her mistress's life. The blonde maid asks how long the chairman will be staying during this visit. Close-up of Freya reflecting on what would happen if she had refused his request. The blonde maid is excited, asking if they will spend the wedding anniversary together. Vibrant, colorful gowns hang on a rack, awaiting selection in the light-filled dressing room. Freya instructs the maid to tell Mrs. Purnell to take care of the dresses. The maid asks if they should pack them, but Freya orders most be discarded. Freya looks away with a neutral expression, appearing completely disconnected from her previous attachments. Freya says there is no need for an expensive dressmaker and suggests department shopping.
The maid thinks that if the ducal daughter skips dressmakers, no one else would.
The maid agrees and suggests they visit the newly opened Louvre department store soon. In a chibi-style scene, Freya suggests stopping by a place called Printemps on the way. The maid is confused by the name, and Freya realizes the store hasn't opened yet. Loud knocking sounds from the hallway interrupt the quiet atmosphere of the luxurious dressing room. Both women look toward the door as the sound of knocking continues to echo inside. Freya stares forward with intense green eyes, her face set in a cold, determined mask. Narrative text explains that two different women held the title of Madame Russell in the mansion.
Matilda, a blonde woman in a red gown, tells Freya to come into the room.
Freya stands before Mathilde, who addresses her by her given name rather than her title. Freya realizes Matilda is pointedly using her first name to avoid acknowledging her married surname. Matilda maintains a regal posture while holding a teacup, exuding an air of cold authority.
Text describes the humiliation Freya felt 3 years into her marriage following her wedding ceremony.
Freya declines the offer of tea, stating that she has already had something to drink. A wide shot reveals the massive drawing room where the two women meet under scrutiny.
The maids whisper, predicting that Freya will inevitably cause a scene or start crying soon.
A close-up of Freya's neck shows a maid's thought that she will probably run away. Freya asks Matilda why she's been summoned to this meeting today in such fashion.
Matilda scowls as the text identifies her as the primary cause of Freya's mental decline.
Freya sits down, prompting Matilda to finally address the actual reason for their meeting today.
Matilda asks Freya to cover the costs of opening a salon under Freya's married name.
Matilda reacts with a look of insulted shock to Freya's unexpected and firm refusal.
Freya suggests that Matilda use her own personal assets since the project is her own.
Matilda smiles wickedly, asking how the name of the house could refer only to her. Matilda feigns disappointment and threatens to discuss the matter with Max if Freya refuses. A tight close-up of Freya's eyes shows her calm focus despite Matilda's blatant social threats.
Text reveals that Matilda used the threat of Max's ears to control Freya for years.
Freya shocks her by telling her to go ahead and tell him whatever she likes. Narrative text explains Freya once trusted Matilda like a mother to gain Max's favor. Text notes that Freya's reliance on Matilda only served to increase Max's disgust for her. A close-up of Freya shows her stoic resolve as she prepares to abandon her past. Narrative text declares that it is finally time to end the foolishness of the past. Freya stands bathed in purple light, looking like a woman reborn and ready for conflict. Matilda asks if Freya is protesting. Matilda advises Freya to dress more aggressively as Freya realizes the advice was intentionally vulgar. Freya suggests telling Max everything and then ending their relationship to live as total strangers. Matilda is left speechless and gasping at Freya's sudden and complete lack of emotional reaction. Matilda screams Freya's name in a panic as the younger woman walks away without hesitation.
Freya thinks she should have made this simple choice a long time ago for her sake.
Matilda bites her lip in a fit of rage, unable to control the deteriorating situation.
Matilda meets with Max in his study, apologizing for the interruption while he sits stoically.
Matilda lies to Max, claiming she tried to befriend Freya but only made things uncomfortable. Max reflects on the strange sequence of events following the divorce acceptance and his mother's visit. Matilda scorns Freya's worth, believing the woman was never an appropriate match for her son.
Narrative text explains that while Max possesses striking looks, he lacks the prestige of noble lineage.
Max successfully revitalized his father's failing business and inherited a legendary name through sheer competence. Matilda tells Max that his wife has likely developed significant mental issues during their long marriage.
Matilda brings up a specific incident from the previous year to highlight Freya's perceived instability.
Matilda suggests hospitalizing Freya for a month, claiming even the ducal house could not object. Max realizes his mother's interference in his personal life has exceeded all of his expectations. Max dismisses Matilda, stating he will handle Freya personally as his mother exits the study.
Matilda walks away with a look of suppressed fury after her attempt at manipulation fails.
Max leans back in his chair and exhales sharply, feeling the weight of the day's events. A close-up of Max's eye reveals his deep contemplation regarding the changing nature of his wife.
Max strides through the grand estate, his presence echoing through the opulent and silent hallways.
The blonde man moves with purpose toward the room where Freya has isolated herself today.
Max peeks into the library, remembering a time when his wife was a very different person.
A young Freya sits peacefully on a sofa, absorbed in a book within a sunlit room.
Young Freya looks away with a serene expression, the image of a refined and delicate noble.
The small girl sits in a massive armchair, appearing tiny against the backdrop of the library.
Young Max recalls his father pressuring him to find the girl during their childhood meeting. Young Freya looks up from her book and coldly tells the boy not to disturb her.
Young Max thinks that her blunt and difficult personality perfectly matches the rumors he heard.
Young Max startles the girl by informing her that everyone in the manor is searching.
Freya reacts with surprise, her green eyes widening as she processes the boy's unexpected presence.
Young Max stands before her, trying to bridge the gap between their very different social worlds. Young Freya challenges his statement, claiming it is impossible that everyone would be looking for her. Young Max notices the book she is reading is a fairy tale about a trapped princess.
Young Max reflects on the story of a prince arriving to save a princess from captivity.
Young Max extends his hand toward her, mimicking the actions of the hero in her book. Young Max asks her purpose for hiding and offers to take her to a secret location. Young Max promises to bring her to a place where no one else can find her. Young Freya notes with logic that she cannot be truly alone if he is with her.
Young Freya stares at him with a skeptical expression, demanding to know why he is helping.
Young Max kneels before her with a charming smile, fully committing to his role as her prince. Close up on the girl's eye as she experiences her first moment of genuine connection with him.
Young Freya leads Max to her father, proudly declaring that the boy is her chosen prince.
Young Freya laughs with pure, unburdened joy, a stark contrast to the woman she eventually became. Max reflects that he was merely a puppet controlled by his power-hungry father during that meeting. A blonde maid looks shocked as Max approaches her while she is carrying a refreshment tray. Max takes the tray from the maid and tells her she is dismissed for the afternoon.
The maid walks away delighted, mistakenly believing the master and mistress are finally reconciling their bond.
Max enters the room where Freya sits. She thanks her maid, unaware of her husband's presence.
Freya startles when she realizes Max is the one standing over her instead of her servant.
Freya quickly regains her composure, looking at her husband with an air of complete and cold detachment.
Freya asks him what could possibly bring him to such a secluded part of the estate.
Max stands before her in the silent library, the tension between them palpable in the afternoon light.
Max mentions that he was informed about the unpleasant confrontation she had with his mother earlier.
Freya asks if that conversation is the only reason he has come to find her today.
Max observes his wife, thinking she feels like an entirely different person than the woman he knew. Max asks her to detail the specific topics she and his mother discussed during their meeting.
Narrative text explains that Max's initial anger led him to seek out this confrontation with Freya. Freya clarifies that her meeting with Matilda was insignificant, having merely rejected the dowry request.
Max reflects on how Freya never shared her struggles, offering him only her unwavering love.
Max contemplates the serious conflict his mother revealed immediately after the divorce agreement was settled.
Max accuses Freya of using a secret 2-year divorce condition to sabotage the process maliciously.
Freya listens to her husband's harsh accusations with a calm and silent gaze in the library. Freya rejects his theory, stating she could oppose the divorce directly without using petty tricks. Max finds it strange that such a cold remark came from the once possessive and obsessive woman.
Freya acknowledges her past mistakes and accepts the duty of slowly regaining her husband's lost trust.
Narrative text recalls Freya's past behaviors, including monitoring Max's movements and investigating every woman he met.
Max watches her with a skeptical and guarded expression as she moves toward the library table.
Freya offers a draft of the divorce contract, suggesting they edit it together before notarization. Max questions where Freya learned legal procedures, as she should be unfamiliar with formal contracts.
Max wonders if Freya is attempting to lure him into a legal trap with the agreement.
Freya addresses Max directly as he stares intensely at the draft she provided for his review.
Freya maintains a steady and unwavering gaze, looking remarkably different from her former fragile self.
Narrative text emphasizes Freya's genuine and powerful desire to escape her previous life of misery.
Auguste Report arrives and asks Max if he has seen the latest news in today's paper.
Auguste notes that a convincing portrait of the couple was featured prominently in the daily newspaper.
The sensationalist headline highlights Freya's past obsession and dramatic public pleas for her husband's love.
Max turns away from the newspaper with a look of visible annoyance at the public scrutiny.
Auguste finds the business partnership scheme suspicious, questioning Freya's true motives for the 2-year clause.
Max reflects deeply on the sudden and drastic changes he has observed in his wife's personality.
Auguste mentions that Freya expects to inherit the Blanc family assets regardless of the divorce outcome.
Auguste draws attention to a specific and unusual clause hidden within the draft of the contract.
A special clause in the contract demands both parties fulfill their marital duties during the process.
Max mutters to himself about the potential trap hidden within the specific wording of the agreement.
Auguste asks if Max is confident enough to handle the marital obligations required by the trap.
Auguste mocks the idea that a man like Max Russell could not handle a simple obligation.
Max looks into the distance, admitting to himself that he might actually want to handle it.
Auguste reviews the contract, noting it is generally favorable and lacks major consequences for any violations.
Auguste notes the suspicion that Freya knows exactly which mining rights Max's company currently needs.
Narrative text explains that Auguste Report, a banking heir, loathes Freya for her distorted obsession.
Auguste warns Max that the Duke of Blanc is a man capable of doing anything.
Narrative text suggests the Duke would sacrifice his own daughter's rights to protect the family assets.
Max cuts the conversation short, telling his friend that he has heard enough for today. Auguste sighs while preparing to investigate if any employees leaked business information for Freya's money.
Max remains seated at his desk, overwhelmed by the complexity of his wife's new business approach.
Max instructs Auguste to discover if Freya and the Duke have been in recent contact.
The formal legal document outlines the terms for the 2-year management period and mining rights.
Freya and Max stand together outside, beginning their temporary 2-year arrangement with a professional heir.
Freya smiles while looking forward to the next 2 years working with her future ex-husband.
Max stares at her with a cold intensity, reminding her that they are not exes yet.
The couple shakes hands firmly under the bright afternoon sun to seal their new business partnership.
Freya blushes and looks away, feeling a lingering sensation after the physical contact with Max.
Max watches her leave, his gaze following her with a mixture of confusion and growing interest.
Freya walks away with a determined expression, silently hoping that her gamble will eventually work out.
Max questions his own heart, wondering if he is starting to feel regret regarding his wife.
Max dismisses his feelings of regret as impossible, calling them a mixture of love and hate.
Freya continues her walk as she exhales a deep breath, relieved that the first step succeeded.
The blonde maid suggests that Freya take a rest at the department store lounge soon. Freya contemplates the department store as a strategic location for her next public appearance. Narration explains that for the upper class, department stores are ideal venues for socializing.
Freya moves to the building with a cold, focused expression, ignoring the surrounding opulence.
The scene transitions past an ornate, gilded doorway as the atmosphere begins to shift. As she enters the room, the collective atmosphere suddenly becomes strange and heavy with tension. A woman in patterned heels steps forward, her surprise evident as she recognizes the visitor. Mademoiselle Bouchard expresses shock that someone like Freya would ever shop at a department store.
The nobles whisper that she was infamous last year and even made the daily papers. Mademoiselle Bouchard recounts rumors of Freya's obsession and her secret investigations into her husband's life.
Gossipers claim she threatened every woman he met and tried to dispose of them quietly.
Mademoiselle Bouchard mocks her, stating that horrific obsession and madness should never be called love.
Freya interrupts the chatter, addressing the crowd and specifically mentioning the women she allegedly threatened.
Freya stands firm before the group, demanding they face her directly regarding their malicious rumors. A brief whimsical interlude pauses the heavy atmosphere of the ongoing social confrontation. The noblewomen argue that the newspapers detailed everything and she should remember her own life. Freya explains she only offered money to women to leave, and not one refused it.
Mademoiselle Bouchard retorts that they only accepted because they feared she would do something terrible.
The pink-haired woman asks about Madame Rossignol, who was reportedly nearly kidnapped by hired thugs.
Freya clarifies she only forced an appointment and was waiting inside the carriage herself.
Narrative text notes that despite the truth, the papers still labeled her as a kidnapper. Freya admits to forcing the marriage but refuses to be condemned for crimes she never committed. Freya notes that this is the very first time she has spoken of these events publicly. Freya confronts Celine Tristan, asking if her side of the story would make a good article.
Nobility remember that the Tristan family owns the newspaper that published the original scandalous reports.
Freya points out that Celine's family paper was the first to print the false testimonies. Freya threatens to take the matter to the Marquis himself as Celine becomes visibly panicked. Celine dismisses her, questioning why anyone would believe her words after half a year. The surrounding ladies begin to whisper as the truth of the newspaper's bias comes to light. Celine trembles with rage and fear as she realizes her family's reputation is now at risk. Freya smiles coldly, asking the group if they don't find the entire situation quite strange. Freya asserts that while people are free to doubt, she has the right to find her enemies.
Freya politely tells the noblewomen to enjoy their time and turns to leave the room.
The blonde maid notices the door is open, wondering why she didn't hear anyone enter.
The maid apologizes for the trouble, but Freya dismisses her concerns with a calm air.
Narrative text explains Freya's deep resentment toward the newspaper that helped destroy her previous life.
Freya looks out at the sky, her gaze hardened by the memories of her past suffering.
A close-up of Freya's eye reveals the burning intensity of her desire for total vindication. A dark omen appears, vowing that the horrific tragedy of her past will never happen again. A man's shadowed voice asks Freya Blanc if she is finally satisfied with her actions. The scene shifts to a desolate twilight field where two figures stand at a distance.
A man stands precariously on the edge of a cliff, his shoe dislodging small stones.
In a flashback, Freya weeps bitterly as she witnesses a moment of absolute emotional destruction. A silhouette looms over her, demanding she look at the wreckage her supposed love caused. Freya is shown on her hands and knees, broken by the weight of her own obsession. Tears fall from Freya's wide, terrified eyes as she experiences the peak of her misery. Freya stands amidst her grief, finally realizing that her feelings were never truly love. A man in a dark cloak stands prepared to deliver his findings to his master. Max asks his subordinates if the subjects noticed they were being tailed during the investigation. The men report that while both women entered, only the maid eventually exited the building.
The investigator expresses deep disappointment, comparing the failed mission to losing a prize already secured.
Auguste observes that their previous efforts were entirely pointless as he talks with Max in the library. He explains that the targets not only noticed the surveillance, but also managed to slip away cleanly. The grand library doors are shut firmly, sealing the two men inside to discuss their failure. Auguste suggests they should have used his wife's recommendation, noting they didn't realize they were being followed. He reflects on his family casting him out and wonders about the benefits of the Draport name. Shrugging, Chibi Auguste notes that his former status would have kept the business hidden from Freya's father.
Max retorts that Auguste left on his own and could reclaim his position as eldest son anytime.
Auguste agrees before pivoting the conversation to ask Max if he finds his wife's behavior strange. Max looks on with a sharp, inquisitive gaze as the conversation shifts toward Freya's recent actions. Auguste brings up the reports regarding Madame Roussel's uncharacteristic behavior at the department store lounge recently. Narration describes how Freya openly denied old scandals and snapped back at the Marquise Dowager during tea. The silver-haired man notes that Freya sounds like a completely different person than the woman they knew. Max stares intensely into the distance, wondering if his wife is truly the same person as before. He focuses particularly on her claim that she was forced into their marriage against her own will. Looking away, Max wonders when she began to think that way about their union and its origins.
He ponders who could have influenced her change in thinking and how much information she actually possesses. The scene shifts to the parlor where Madame Purnell formally greets Freya with a polite, practiced smile.
Freya warmly thanks Madame Purnell for coming and invites her to take a seat for their meeting.
Text panels explain that Inez Purnell became the family head after her husband died in the war.
Despite social taboos, Madame Purnell used her exceptional business sense to flourish in the secondhand clothing industry.
Madame Purnell sits across from Freya, looking attentive as they begin to discuss a potential business partnership. Purnell expresses interest in selling dresses through Freya's boutique, acknowledging the clear benefits for both of them.
Freya smiles at the purple-haired businesswoman, suggesting that Purnell might not actually need her specific help.
Narrative text highlights how many nobles viewed the business of selling used clothing as a shameful insult. Madame Purnell remains calm and focused, waiting for Freya to reveal the true nature of her proposal. Text explains the social stigma surrounding Freya, noting that no woman currently wants to be associated with her. Narration recounts how Freya was labeled a traitor and publicly scorned after rumors of her insanity spread.
Turning her back slightly, Freya tells Madame Purnell that she intends to be blunt about their situation.
Freya faces her guest with a confident smirk, signaling that the real negotiation is about to begin. Madame Purnell is momentarily taken aback by Freya's directness, her eyes widening in a look of surprise.
Narration over the businesswoman's face notes that Freya is clearly preparing a move that requires strong backing. Madame Purnell clasps her hands together, internally weighing the potential risks and rewards of joining Freya's cause.
Narrative text describes the choice as a scale between empowering Freya or falling into ruin with her. Stunned by Freya's insight, Madame Purnell asks how she knows her secrets or if she is a fortune teller. Purnell insists that only 2 trusted seamstresses knew that information, and they would never have spoken of it. A hand steadily holds a delicate teacup as the tension in the room reaches a boiling point. Freya dismisses the question of how she knows, focusing instead on whether her proposal interests the businesswoman. Madame Purnell's business instincts flare as she realizes she is dealing with a much more formidable opponent.
Taking a breath, the purple-haired woman tells Freya to go on and finish explaining her grand plan.
Freya announces her intention to re-enter high society actively, fully exercising her rights as the daughter of Blanc. She admits Purnell has great instincts, but argues that certain social realms require more than just business sense.
Freya mentions Versailles as a specific example, causing Madame Purnell to flinch with visible mounting shock. Standing tall and radiant, Freya's presence commands the room as she reveals the true extent of her ambition.
Madame Purnell reflects on how the rumors of Freya being an empty-headed fool were clearly and utterly false. Freya points out that the blank name is well regarded and asks for Purnell's final thoughts on her offer. Purnell wonders if Freya has been deceiving everyone and if her past scandals were merely a staged performance.
The 2 women reach a silent understanding, with Purnell admitting she is becoming quite fond of this version.
Mathilde enters the room in a stunning green gown, remarking that she wasn't told they had a guest. Freya explains that Madame Purnell is visiting on business to sell some dresses she no longer intends to wear.
Madame Purnell and Matilda exchange polite, thin smiles as the business meeting concludes under a veneer of etiquette.
Matilda expresses her surprise and mild frustration that Freya decided to dispose of her dress without notification.
Standing between her guests, Freya offers a polite apology for the oversight regarding her wardrobe change. Freya notes she didn't realize permission was required, prompting Matilda to clarify she only wanted to prepare better. Madame Purnell finds Freya's sharp wit impressive while noting she has clearly been treated well in this house. Matilda mentions her own need for a new gown and suggests she might place an order soon.
Sunlight fills the grand parlor as Matilda emphasizes that this particular dress order is far from ordinary.
Freya explains the exclusivity of the Blanc name prevents Matilda's inclusion, causing the blonde woman visible embarrassment. Madame Purnell plans a weekend boutique visit while Mathilde fumes in the background over being socially sidelined. Matilda's face is cast in deep shadow as her simmering resentment finally reaches its breaking point. The heavy parlor door shuts firmly, signaling the abrupt end of the tense social gathering.
Freya watches the door with a cold, analytical gaze, unfazed by her companion's sudden and angry departure.
Mathilde walks away while ranting that Freya is ungrateful for Max's pity, claiming his interest won't last. Freya's green eyes narrow slightly as she absorbs the petty insults thrown by the retreating woman. Standing her ground, Freya calmly asks for confirmation on whether Max actually shared those specific thoughts. Freya reveals she heard the rumors secondhand just like Mathilde, catching the blonde woman completely off guard.
Leaning in close, Freya whispers that she knows about the plan to have her forcibly hospitalized.
Narration warns of the consequences for disrespecting House Blanc as Freya looms over a terrified, shadowed Mathilde. Freya delivers a chilling warning that provoked people eventually bite, leaving Mathilde trembling with visible fear. With a radiant and deceptive smile, Freya reassures Mathilde she is lucky because she isn't actually insane. A sign for Dr. Sigmund's consultation room marks the change in location for the next encounter. A quiet, sunlit room filled with plants and medical screens awaits the start of a private meeting. A large stack of files sits on the desk as the doctor addresses his new visitor formally.
Dr. Sigmund asks if she truly claims to be experiencing a repeating cycle of time.
Dressed in full black mourning attire with a heavy veil, Freya confirms the truth of her situation. The silver-haired doctor dismisses the mechanics of her claim, asking instead what she considers to be important. Looking through her dark veil, Freya states that the favor she requires is the only thing that matters. Freya asks about his origins in Durland, causing the doctor to freeze with a look of pure shock. Dr. Zygmunt's expression hardens as he asks if she has been conducting a secret investigation into his past.
Freya suggests that helping her will be mutually beneficial, maintaining her mysterious and commanding presence.
The doctor demands to know her request while warning against illegal acts, which Freya quickly dismisses as unnecessary.
Freya clasps her gloved hands and announces her desire to have her memories erased through the use of hypnosis.
Dr. Zygmunt reflects on his schedule and how she arrived precisely as he was preparing to leave. Taking notes, the doctor questions if the memories she wants gone are related to her supposed time loops.
Freya specifies she wants to forget one particular person entirely, a task the doctor finds incredibly complex.
She reveals the haunting nature of her trauma, explaining that she is constantly reliving a specific death.
The doctor is momentarily speechless, his brow furrowing as he attempts to process the gravity of her statement.
Freya remains indifferent to his skepticism, stating his belief is irrelevant to the success of her request. Dr. Zygmunt finds the prospect of erasing a recurring death from a living person's mind undeniably intriguing.
Freya openly admits to her own perceived madness, telling him not to waste time analyzing her honesty. While the doctor insists truth is vital for treatment, Freya clarifies she is a benefactor, not a patient.
Freya places a large check on the table, noting he cannot hide his fascination with this unique case.
She confidently predicts that his professional curiosity and the financial incentive will ensure his total cooperation.
Dr. Zygmunt realizes the offer of a powerful sponsor and a fascinating case is impossible to turn down.
A close-up reveals the doctor's internal conflict ending as he decides to accept her extraordinary proposal.
A hand strikes the table with finality, securing the agreement between the mysterious woman and the specialist.
Defeated by his own curiosity, the doctor listens as Freya gives him an address and a stern warning. Dr. Zygmunt allows a subtle smile to play on his lips, intrigued by the challenge ahead of him.
Behind the dark lace of her veil, Freya smiles back, satisfied that her plan is finally in motion.
Before she leaves, the silver-haired doctor asks if the man whose death haunts her is her husband.
Freya's hands clench tightly in her lap, revealing the deep emotional turmoil hidden beneath her composed exterior. Through her black veil, Freya stares forward with a cold, unreadable expression. Narrator recalls the winter of her 23rd year, marking the end of her first life.
Narrator explains that her husband died before her eyes, and she was the cause.
Freya recounts returning to her 22nd year after attempting to follow her husband in death. Freya identifies the man before her as the only person capable of saving her from hell.
The silver-haired man listens with a skeptical and guarded expression as Freya continues her explanation.
Freya reminds him of his Hippocratic oath and his tendency to honor it despite grave threats.
The man questions why she speaks with such intimate knowledge of his character and past behavior.
A close-up reveals the piercing intensity in Freya's eye as she observes his reaction.
The scene transitions to a carriage traveling down a sun-drenched road toward its next destination.
Freya gazes out the window, her reflection showing a woman hardened by her previous life's experiences.
Narrative text notes that her past self never questioned why her family allowed scandalous articles to stand.
Freya reflects on her failure to challenge the sources of the rumors that ruined her reputation.
A local newspaper features the scandalous headlines that once dictated the public's perception of her life.
Narrative text questions why the Duke of Blanc failed to protect his only daughter's social standing.
Freya considers her lack of resentment toward her father, despite his apparent neglect of her honor.
Back at the estate, Mila stands dutifully behind Freya as they discuss the upcoming travel plans. Mila confirms her obedience, while Freya realizes the maid likely lacks fond memories of the castle. Mila looks downward, her expression softening with a mixture of surprise and gratitude toward her mistress.
Freya remains lost in thought, planning her next move to dismantle the web of lies surrounding her. Mila watches Freya with a renewed sense of loyalty, noticing the drastic change in her demeanor.
Freya encourages Mila to act according to her own wishes rather than following strict protocols.
Freya offers a rare, gentle smile to her maid, solidifying their bond of mutual trust.
Freya confronts Max, asserting that she is speaking the absolute truth regarding her current intentions.
Freya emphasizes the seriousness of her situation while Max remains silent, carefully weighing her words. Public opinion continues to condemn her, with many still believing she has lost her mind entirely. Freya moves through the grand hallway with Mila, ignoring the whispers of the household staff.
A servant bows respectfully as Freya passes, signaling her return to a position of authority.
Freya stops as she spots Max conversing with his mother on the balcony high above. Max dismisses his mother's concerns, stating that they will discuss the family matters at a later time. Freya dismisses Mila for the evening, choosing to proceed into the next room without her assistance. Max approaches Freya and advises her to ignore his mother's harsh and judgmental remarks. Freya questions Max's unexpected presence, asking what specifically brought him to her quarters today. Max wonders if she realizes he had her followed or if she is simply feigning ignorance. Freya looks back at Max with a steady gaze, waiting for him to reveal his true purpose.
Narrative text notes this moment occurred before their relationship reached a point of total destruction.
Narrative text explains that Max would often express his unfiltered thoughts without using deceptive or flowery language. Freya clarifies that while the rumors were exaggerated, certain parts of her past actions were true. Freya admits she hired investigators because she suspected him of infidelity and wanted to find the women.
Max remains stoic and silent as he absorbs her admission regarding her past obsessive behavior.
Freya maintains that claims of blackmail and kidnapping are lies, leaving the choice of belief to him. Max admits he was afraid to speak earlier, fearing she would despise him or doubt his words. Freya asks if there were any other details he wished to verify before they concluded the talk. Max stops her, stating that he has something else he needs to communicate to her directly. Freya waits patiently for him to speak, her expression remarkably calm given the history between them. Freya proposes beginning her duties at the office next Monday, which Max notes is very soon. Max asks why she feels such an urgent need to begin working at the company immediately.
Freya offers a subtle smile, showing she has a specific strategy in mind for the visit.
Freya explains she felt it was unfair to be the only woman excluded from his workplace. Freya asks if Max is worried she will act insane, and he admits that he is. Max maintains a stoic and unreadable expression as he observes the current social situation unfold.
Freya looks back with a knowing smile, her elegant black dress shimmering in the soft light.
A whimsical transition signals a shift in the narrative as the scene moves to another location. In a grand room, a blonde woman paces nervously while a butler stands waiting nearby.
Hiding her face with a fan, the blonde woman wonders who leaked their secret hospital business.
Madame Tristan asks the butler if he has found the informant, but he reports no success. In a fit of rage, Madame Tristan orders the butler to fire all the current staff. Throwing her fan to the ground, Madame Tristan screams that absolutely nothing is going her way.
Madame Tristan realizes her scheme to hospitalize Freya and sees her dowry has been utterly ruined.
A close-up shows the blonde woman's hand trembling as she grips her dress in sheer frustration. Despite the setback, the blonde woman begins to formulate a new, more calculated and dangerous plan. Madame Tristan decides to reduce the scale of her scheme to ensure a more effective outcome.
An ominous energy builds as the narrative suggests that her next move will be far worse.
Several men sit at a table discussing the latest newspaper article featuring Madame Russell's recent activities.
The newspaper shows a caricature of Madame Russell, questioning her inability to recognize the artist nearby.
One man questions the accuracy of the caricature, noting that a refined noble would recognize him.
They discuss the famous artist's work, concluding that Madame Russell likely wouldn't have cared anywhere.
One of the men reacts with shock as a shadow falls over the group's private conversation. Freya arrives at the office, causing the men to scramble and address her as Madame Russell.
Freya offers a warm and gentle smile, masking the strategic thoughts currently racing through her mind.
The men rise quickly from their seats, greeting Freya with a mixture of surprise and formal respect.
Freya finds the newspaper caricature of her outing amusing, noting how an ordinary trip became gossip.
Freya recalls the gallery visit and realizes that people have been watching her every single move. A moment of quiet reflection passes as Freya considers the implications of the ongoing public scrutiny. Narrative text notes that House Tristan likely spread rumors to vent about their recent social humiliation. Narrative text explains how easily they could have turned Madame Russell's disgrace into a major article. Freya wonders why the situation passed so quietly, questioning if her enemies are being especially cautious. The two subordinates are visibly flustered by Freya's presence, their faces turning a bright shade of red. Surrounded by roses, Freya contemplates her next move, while wondering if Max will return home soon. Freya walks through the grand office, drawing the eyes of every man present in the room. Freya greets Traport with a polite hello as she prepares to officially begin her workday duties. Traport informs Freya that the boss is currently waiting for her inside the main library office. A firm knock on the large wooden door signals that the visitor has finally arrived today. Traport announces Madame Russell's arrival to Max, who is busy working at his large wooden desk.
Max looks up from his paperwork, his expression shifting into one of confusion and slight disbelief.
Freya confirms her presence to Max, questioning why he seems so surprised to see her there. Traport notes that Freya's elaborate outfit is impractical for work and suggests she wears simpler clothes. In a chibi moment, Freya apologizes to Max for overdressing on her very first official day. Traport reminds Freya that she must address Max as the boss when they are in public. Max watches Freya intently, his gaze lingering as he processes her sudden and very determined arrival. Memories of her first life's end linger in the air as the scene shifts slightly backward. Narrative text observes that Freya looks like she is dressed for a romantic date rather than work. Narrative text reflects on Max's misfortunes, citing his meeting with Freya Blank as the first step. The text details Max's financial struggles after inheriting his father's fraudulent and failing business empire. Freya fidgets with the fabric of her green dress, feeling the weight of the moment's significance. The trio stands in the library as the conversation turns toward the business projects on the desk. Looking at the map, Freya asks if the red thread is meant to mark a new mode. Dropwork confirms her suspicion, surprised that she recognized the purpose of the thread on the map. Max explains that the red line represents the planned route for the upcoming Grand Railway project.
Narrative text warns that the failure of this project will eventually cost Max his entire reputation.
Freya realizes her own power is insufficient to force him to abandon the project alone.
Narrative text explains that the true reason Max cannot give up is far more complex.
Freya's gaze hardens as she prepares herself for the difficult confrontation currently lying ahead.
Max confirms his grand ambitions to establish the Empire's very first passenger railway network.
Freya questions if Max's true motivation for this risky business stems from his father's past.
Max falls into a heavy, contemplative silence as he avoids directly answering her pointed question.
Narrative text reveals that Max's father was a despicable swindler who abandoned his own family. Max once faced imprisonment after his house was ruined by his father's canal investment fraud. During his deepest moment of despair, Freya Blank reached out and offered him a proposal.
The two were once united by a childhood bond that promised a much brighter future. Freya offered to help revive the failing canal project despite its reputation as a fraud. Max stands alone amidst thorns, his back turned to the world as he carries his burdens. A younger, naive Freya was once completely blinded by the illusion of a fairy tale romance. 17-year-old Freya smiled brightly, believing she had finally found her path to eternal happiness. Returning to the present, Freya resolves that she must act differently to change her fate.
A bright flash signals a sudden and unexpected shift in the room's current tense atmosphere.
Marquise Tristan enters the office addressing Max and immediately drawing everyone's attention to his arrival.
The black-haired Marquise Tristan looks around the room, sensing the heavy tension between the occupants.
Freya greets Marquise Tristan with feigned surprise, hiding her true disdain for the man's presence. Freya secretly harbors a murderous hatred for the Marquise, despite his reputation as a handsome noble.
Marquise Tristan addresses her formally as Madame Russell, acknowledging her presence with a cool, polite greeting.
In a chibi moment, Tristan recalls the scandalous stories and caricatures currently circulating about her. Freya expresses her disappointment to Max for keeping the Marquis' involvement in the company a secret.
Max dismisses her concerns, questioning why he would ever need to share such business details.
The Marquis steps forward to intervene as the conversation takes a sharp and personal turn.
Freya mentions the awkwardness of meeting again after his family once submitted a marriage proposal.
Max is visibly stunned to learn about a prior marriage proposal from the house of Tristan.
Freya apologizes for the awkwardness, noting her father told her not to mention uncomfortable past matters.
Freya points out that the proposal arrived just as Max's father's scandalous affairs were being exposed. An icy silence descends over the group as the heavy weight of her words takes hold.
Chibi Draport hurriedly offers to give Freya a tour to defuse the growing social disaster.
Marquise Tristan remains composed, attributing the past marriage proposal entirely to his own father's past decisions.
Max tries to rationalize the news, convincing himself the old proposal is now completely irrelevant. Despite his logical reasoning, Max feels a bitter and lingering sense of unease regarding the revelation.
The two men exchange a silent, intense look, their partnership now strained by the sudden disclosure.
Max shifts focus back to work, announcing a revised railway bill for the upcoming Senate session.
The black-haired man maintains a stoic presence while the underlying power dynamic continues to shift.
As they leave the office, Draport asks Freya what she is truly thinking about right now.
Draport accuses her of acting on purpose while Freya feigns ignorance about her strategic verbal attacks.
Draport questions if she is trying to dismantle the essential partnership between the Marquis and Max.
Freya challenges him, asking if he would dare to expel his official business partner for her.
Draport's expression darkens with frustration as he realizes he cannot easily control her current actions.
Narrative text explains that the divorce agreement legally confirms Freya's status as an indispensable business partner.
Draport is shocked as he begins to understand that Freya has been several steps ahead.
Narrative text explains how past articles ruin the relations between the rival noble houses of Tristan and Blanc.
Freya suggests that Draport should have sought a partnership with his own house instead of Tristan.
Draport reacts with anger, telling her not to speak so carelessly about complex political matters.
Freya challenges him to consider the implications of a marriage proposal between Draport and House Blanc.
Draport follows her into the hallway, desperate for an explanation after her latest calculated social bomb.
Freya halts him with a sharp look, asserting that she is there for business, not sightseeing.
Freya prioritizes her business objectives over the petty social gossip currently circulating.
Draport looks increasingly uncomfortable as the weight of the current situation bears down. The blonde man and the silver-haired subordinate watch as the woman moves with purpose.
Freya settles onto the sofa and invites the men to continue their business discussion comfortably.
Max asks the woman to proceed with her thoughts as the black-haired man watches.
Marquise Tristan reports that the lobbying from the canal side is more threatening than they anticipated.
Freya lists specific rail fee clauses regarding freight and passenger rates for the upcoming project. Marquise Tristan agrees that they must block the freight clause, finding common ground with Freya. A look of quiet calculation crosses Freya's face as she evaluates the men's strategy. Narrative text reflects on how some historical events remain unchangeable regardless of time travel efforts.
Marquise Tristan plans to win over moderate lawmakers who might vote against the new amendment.
Max cautions his partner not to overextend himself while keeping his true identity a secret.
Marquise Tristan bids Freya farewell, suggesting they meet again in a more appropriate professional setting.
A subtle, knowing smile plays on Marquis Tristan's lips as he concludes the meeting.
Freya watches the Marquis depart, wondering what his next tactical move will be.
Narrative text questions if the Marquis will actually help or simply report Freya's interference. Determined to succeed, Freya realizes that one specific outcome in the situation is absolutely certain.
Narrative text predicts that a formal summoning letter will soon arrive for the determined woman. Report questions the wisdom of leaving the crucial vote-gathering process entirely to the Marquis.
Max explains that his personal involvement might trigger a negative backlash from their business rivals. Narrative text highlights the delicate balance Max must maintain due to his family's reputation.
Freya suggests utilizing Drayport's connections instead of relying solely on the Marquis' political lobbying.
The two men are momentarily stunned by the woman's bold and unexpected tactical suggestion. Draport argues that his own house is estranged and would never offer them any assistance.
Freya declares her intention to handle the meeting herself, much to the men's visible alarm.
Max skeptically asks what his wife hopes to achieve by meeting such difficult people alone.
Freya explains that she will act as a partner to sway the opposition votes favorably.
Freya challenges Max's hesitation, asking why she shouldn't try if he is already giving up.
Max expresses concern that her interference might provoke their rivals without achieving any positive results.
Freya points out the strategic advantage of nobody expecting Max to trust his wife with business. A purple-haired witch character appears in a transitional panel while holding a small creature. Draport finds her logic annoyingly accurate and wonders if she has enhanced her natural intelligence.
Chibi Freya confidently selects a perfect meeting place that will catch her targets off guard.
With a confident smirk, Freya reveals her intended destination is the exclusive Jockey Club.
Draport is shocked and demands to know how she discovered such private family information.
Draport suspiciously wonders if the woman has been investigating his entire family behind his back.
Freya reveals her source of information, leaving the silver-haired man looking completely flustered and defeated.
Freya smiles brightly as she asserts her pride and capability as a member of House Blanc.
Draport reluctantly yields to her plan, admitting that her reasoning is difficult to argue against. Freya invites Max to join her if he is uneasy, and he agrees to adjust his schedule.
Max asks if she remembers her earlier request for professional business management lessons from him.
Freya playfully asks if their recent strategic discussion already counted as her first management lesson.
Both men are left feeling bewildered and questioning if her behavior qualifies as a standard lesson. Max notes that she likely has no desire to leave the office together with him anyway.
Freya asks if she was wrong to assume that he would prefer her to depart first.
Max looks away and quietly admits that her assumption about his preferences was actually correct. A look of satisfaction fills Freya's eyes as she confirms her suspicions about her husband's thoughts. The scene shifts as the office falls into a momentary silence following the intense conversation.
Max finds himself questioning if the woman standing before him is truly the Freya he knew.
The two men stand together, processing the remarkable and calculated changes in Freya's recent behavior. Freya reflects on her departure, questioning if she left because Max truly desired her absence.
A hazy, emotional atmosphere lingers as the scene shifts away from the previous office tension.
Draport confirms to Max that his personal investigation has yielded no information regarding the situation. The men discuss how the Duke has completely ignored his daughter since a scandalous article's release. Max focuses on the conversation's details, questioning Draport about the specific words his wife used. Draport reacts with confusion, taken aback by Max's sudden interest in Freya's earlier strategic remarks.
Draport recalls Freya's cryptic warning about her father and questions the true meaning behind her words.
Draport repeats Freya's tactical advice, suggesting they should have involved House Draport instead.
Draport suspiciously asks Max if he broke confidence and discussed private matters with Freya.
Draport remains uncertain as he evaluates the possibility of Freya knowing more than she should.
Draport lists the only 3 people who should possess knowledge regarding the conflict with the Duke.
Draport wonders if Max's father would suddenly reveal long-held secrets to Freya after years of silence. Narrative text emphasizes Freya's prior reputation for being entirely consumed by her romantic obsession with Max. Max decides to pivot their investigation toward the secret marriage proposal despite the potential difficulties.
Max expresses concern that any discovery regarding the past proposal would only create further complicated problems.
Narrative text warns that any hidden links between Marquis Tristan and the Duke would cause trouble. One of the men agrees with the assessment of the high stakes involved in their partnership. Max falls into a contemplative silence as he weighs the risks and Freya's recent, unexpected behavior. Max finds himself constantly questioning the fundamental identity of the woman his wife has recently become. Max's expression remains stoic as he struggles to reconcile his past memories of Freya with reality. Freya stands with a poised and elegant demeanor, a stark contrast to her previous social reputation. A transitional panel features a purple-haired witch character offering a playful message to the series readers. A formal letter arrives containing a brief request for a personal meeting to discuss undisclosed matters. Freya notes the cold brevity of her father's first communication in 6 months while preparing her response. The butler provides a simple, compliant answer to Freya as they discuss the logistics of the household. The atmosphere is professional yet guarded as Freya and the butler continue their subtle power play. Freya is momentarily startled by a piece of information or a realization during her talk with the butler. Freya questions why the butler, previously neutral during her mistreatment, is now delivering messages from Matilda.
The conversation shifts to the scheduling of an upcoming social salon, a critical event for their plans.
Freya pointedly challenges the butler's loyalty, reminding him of the precarious political situation within the household. The butler diplomatically acknowledges Freya's original status while framing his assistance as a matter of professional convenience.
Freya tests the butler's stance by asking if he expects her to yield her rightful position.
Freya offers the butler a strategic exit plan involving a recommendation and compensation for his cooperation.
Seizing the opportunity, Freya immediately prepares to issue her first set of instructions to the butler. Freya demands the guest list for the rival salon, a key move to undermine her social opposition.
The butler realizes the danger of the request but accepts the risk to secure his future.
The butler is stunned by Freya's sudden displays of intelligence, wondering why she hid it before.
A look of triumphant satisfaction crosses Freya's face as she successfully recruits a key internal ally.
The butler reflects on how much different the household dynamic would be if Freya had always hapted.
Freya admits that this is her first time actively resisting Matilda's control over her life.
Freya begins organizing her thoughts to manage the complex political threats involving her father and rivals.
Freya pauses, her mind already racing toward the next significant obstacle in her carefully constructed plan.
The focus shifts to the upcoming Imperial Ball, the most prestigious social event of the season.
Narrative text warns that Freya will face heavy public mockery during her first post-scandal social appearance.
Undeterred by the impending social disaster, Freya rises with determination to prepare for her public debut. Freya maintains her confident smile, ready to face the high-stakes challenges of the Imperial Court.
Freya arrives for an urgent meeting with Inns Purnell, who suggests they use informal names immediately.
The two women solidify their alliance by agreeing to a mutual level of personal familiarity.
Inns introduces a stoic, red-haired man named Paul as they prepare to begin their private discussion.
Paul's cool demeanor prompts a sharp reaction from Inns, hinting at a tense relationship between them.
Inns welcomes Freya into a workshop where Paul stands ready to begin their discussion. Paul questions the validity of the rumor regarding a madam buying him a court ticket.
Inns critiques Paul's lack of social awareness while he boasts about his future fashion dominance.
Freya offers a mysterious smile as she prepares to unveil her next calculated strategic move.
Narrative text predicts a future where every noblewoman wears dresses designed or inspired by Paul.
Freya asks Paul for his next plan after she successfully opens the path to court.
Inns details her desire to secure imperial contracts and introduce the haute couture business concept.
Narrative text explains the traditional view that tailors should only reflect their clients' specific opinions.
The haute couture model is described as giving the tailor the ultimate power of choice.
Freya clarifies that her new proposals are optional and won't harm their existing business relationship. Paul and Inns are visibly intrigued by Freya's mention of additional undisclosed business proposals. Freya proposes that Paul's first official dress be a custom creation for her Versailles debut.
Freya rejects the idea of choosing from existing samples, demanding a completely new design process.
Freya insists on selecting every component of her first dress, starting from the base fabric.
Inns asks for the details of the second proposal as they continue their tense negotiation.
Freya maintains an elegant and focused gaze while preparing to deliver her second major proposal. The mention of the second proposal causes immediate shock and alarm for Paul and Inns.
Paul asks if the suggestion is a joke or if he should end a meeting.
Paul questions if Freya is attempting to retract her earlier promises regarding his career advancement.
Freya explains that dressing high-ranking ladies is a guaranteed path to fame and extreme wealth.
Narrative text uses a rose and thorn metaphor to describe beautiful things hiding dangerous traps. Paul Charlot is introduced as a highly talented yet historically unfortunate figure in fashion. Visual text notes that despite his brilliance, his name and boutique were historically never recognized. An illustration features an imperial lady known as the empire's most beautiful and precious jewel.
A newspaper reveals the tragic narrative of the ill-fated tailor who once received great praise.
The scene reflects on how exceptional talent can become a curse without social protection.
Freya considers the difficulty of convincing someone of a future success that hasn't happened yet.
Paul aggressively expresses his intent to have the Empress wear his designs through any means.
Narrative text compares the theft of a designer's work to the loss of their life.
Freya promises to facilitate his success specifically under the prestigious brand name of House Blanc.
Paul asks if she seriously expects him to abandon the court for her specific offer. Paul mentions he has heard many rumors about Freya, expressing his suspicion of her motives. Freya calmly notes that both proposals are optional and he is free to say no. Inns asks Freya to detail the specific benefits of accepting this new partnership proposal.
Freya promises he will become the first haute couturier with a boutique under her patronage.
Freya warns that the imperial dress domain is ruled by a greedy and powerful family.
Freya suggests he doesn't need her help if his only goal is dressing imperial women.
Freya offers the chance for Paul to finally open a boutique bearing his own name.
Freya guarantees that she is the best possible choice for his future career and legacy. A confident and triumphant Freya stands surrounded by flowers, signaling her successful negotiation.
A purple-haired witch character appears in a transitional panel while holding a small creature.
Paul finds her offer worse than blackmail and questions her negativity toward the royals.
Paul requests time to think over the significant offer before making a final decision.
Freya realizes that pushing too hard now would be counterproductive to her ultimate goal.
Freya agrees to wait, asking for an answer by the time her dress is finished. The scene shifts to the exterior of a carriage, marking the end of the meeting. Freya enters her carriage while Inns and Paul watch from the doorway of the workshop.
Narrative text questions if the determined woman only saw the immediate situation or something deeper.
Freya leaves Paul with a final warning to be wary of spies and hidden listeners.
Paul smirks with renewed interest as he processes the dangerous but enticing opportunity Freya provided.
Walking through the workshop, Paul Charlotte asks Inns Purnell for her thoughts on the meeting.
Paul Charlotte notes Freya's intimidating warning while Inns Purnell admits she was previously a bit complacent. Inns Purnell realizes she overlooked the danger of Paul Charlotte's talent being exploited by covetous rivals.
The pair contemplates Freya's claim that rejecting her offer means giving up on dressing the Empress. Back at the estate, Freya carefully reviews a document while preparing for her next major move.
Freya smiles triumphantly as she examines the salon guest list provided by her new ally, the butler.
Freya informs her mate, Milla, that she must visit the bank for an undisclosed personal matter.
An older man named Joseph reads the newspaper in a bookstore that serves as an intelligence hub. Joseph glances up from his paper to ask his visitor for the required secret book title.
Freya provides the codename The Black Cat to confirm her identity to the veteran investigator.
Dressed in a poised light blue gown and sun hat, Freya prepares for a secret consultation.
Joseph gestures for Freya to follow him into the private back area of his humble bookstore. The two descend a staircase into a secluded room to discuss their confidential business without being overheard. Freya informs Joseph that she has a specific individual she needs him to look into immediately. Joseph notes her persistent habits before Freya orders him to track a person's whereabouts for 6 months.
Freya maintains a cold, focused expression while waiting for Joseph to evaluate the difficulty of the task.
Joseph estimates 10 days, but Freya demands results by next Saturday and orders him to bypass her father.
Joseph complies with her orders while Freya prepares to depart for her next high-stakes social engagement.
Narrative text recalls the public scandal regarding Madame Rossignol and the damaging interviews that followed. Freya previously suspected Joseph sold her information, but she now realizes such a betrayal was impossible.
Joseph is revealed as the head of an intelligence group founded by Freya's father with imperial approval. Freya instructs Joseph to act according to her father's original orders during this critical investigation. Freya stands elegantly amidst a backdrop of flowers, radiating the confidence of a woman in control.
Narrative text introduces the exclusive men-only clubs of Lutz as the Empire's most vital social venues.
The Jockey Club is described as the pinnacle of upper-class society, where membership signifies extreme status. Wealthy noblemen gather inside the opulent club to exchange gossip and discuss the latest political developments.
A group of men discuss the upcoming horse racing competition, dismissing any unexpected winners as impossible.
The club's atmosphere shifts abruptly as the noblemen react with pure shock to a sudden entrance. Murmurs ripple through the crowd as a mysterious figure disrupts the traditionally male-dominated sanctuary of the club. A single white high-heeled shoe steps onto the club floor, signaling a bold defiance of social norms. A nobleman shouts in outrage, demanding to know which idiot dared to bring a woman inside. Freya is revealed in a stunning white lace gown, captivating the room with her unexpected presence. A man watches in disbelief as Freya enters the room accompanied by a tall, blonde companion.
Max is revealed as Freya's escort, his cold and striking appearance drawing the attention of everyone present.
The club members whisper about the well-known discord between the Blanc family and their only daughter.
Narrative text mentions the kidnapping incident from the previous year as Freya ignores the judgmental stares.
Onlookers accuse Max of cheating openly in front of his father-in-law, the founding member of the club.
The men compare the woman's appearance to the Duke's daughter, struggling to reconcile the two identities.
A mental image of the Duke's daughter as a scandalous figure contrasts sharply with Freya's current elegance. The noblemen conclude that Max has brought this woman specifically to insult the Duke's prestigious reputation. A man with light brown hair approaches the pair, relishing the prospect of a public family scandal.
The light brown-haired man wears a devious smile as he prepares to confront the controversial couple.
The man greets them with forced politeness, his expression masking his true intent to cause social ruin. Max and Freya stand their ground as the light brown-haired man faces them in the center of the hall.
The intricate details of Freya's white dress are shown, symbolizing her purity and new social standing.
The crowd watches with bated breath as the tension between the three central figures reaches a peak.
Freya lightheartedly asks Max if their arrival today is intended as a formal declaration of war.
Max calmly admits that while it wasn't the goal, the atmosphere certainly suggests a coming conflict.
The scene shifts between the judgmental gazes of the crowd and Max's unwavering protective stance beside Freya.
The confrontation begins in earnest as the three nobles face off under the watchful eyes of the elite.
Freya leans affectionately against her father, the powerful Duke of Blanc, during the social gathering.
The brown-haired Duke acknowledges Russell's presence with a polite but measured greeting. Max respectfully greets the Duke while privately labeling the man a shameless hypocrite for his actions.
Onlookers watch from a distance as the Duke and Max exchange stiff, formal pleasantries. Narrative text explains that the Duke wields absolute authority in the Empire, second only to royalty. The Duke stands confidently amidst a floral backdrop, radiating an aura of immense social power.
Max reflects on being toyed with by the Duke's power, expecting to be eventually discarded.
Narrative text recounts Max reaching for the princess's hand without understanding his social standing. A memory shows the Duke asking a young Max if white suits him, receiving a negative. The Duke praises the boy's intelligence, contrasting it with his father's perceived lack of wit.
After becoming the princess's fiancé, Max receives instructions to stay close to the young girl.
Young Max is characterized as a mere playmate who is forced into the role of fiancé.
In the present, the Duke mentions Freya's recent visit to a salon exhibition and her purchase.
The Duke questions why Freya has been frequenting Max's office lately, seeking an explanation.
Freya charmingly explains that her only purpose for visiting is to watch her husband at work.
Max finds the current domestic pretense between Freya and the Duke to be utterly bizarre.
Narrative text reveals that the Duke remained silent even when Freya was socially cornered.
House Blanc sent no inquiries during the scandal, and Freya never initiated contact with them.
Despite 6 months of silence, the pair now converses while masking their true combative emotions.
Max hoped their meeting would reveal hidden motives, but his confusion only continues to grow.
Freya boldly asks her father to ensure she receives an invitation to an upcoming event. Narrative text notes that the Russell family is traditionally excluded from receiving imperial invitations.
The scene highlights the impossibility of commoners being invited to the ball, regardless of wealth.
Max observes that the social barriers regarding invitations mean nothing to Freya or the Duke.
The Duke asks if her request implies a desire to return to high society.
While acknowledging her desire, the Duke advises waiting another year to avoid prying eyes.
Freya refuses the delay, firmly stating her intention to attend the ball within this year.
Narrative text explains high society's custom of ignoring a woman's past before her official debut. Etiquette dictates treating a woman as an unmarried maiden, especially if her marriage was unconsummated. Freya reflects on realizing her father's true intentions only after the news of Max's supposed death.
In the eyes of noble families, the Duke ensured Freya remained perceived as a pure maiden.
Freya contemplates a painful future parting while clasping her hands together in a resolute gesture.
Freya vows to make society remember her marriage to Max before God and their wedding vows.
The Duke concedes to her wish, promising to send the imperial invitation to the Russell residence. A heavy door shuts firmly, signaling the end of the tense familial discussion within the room.
An open box reveals a collection of fine cigars prepared for the men to enjoy. The Duke offers Max a cigar, but the younger man politely declines the offer.
The Duke notes their apparent closeness and reminds Max of the strict agreement they read.
Max stares coldly as he recalls the accursed promise that governs his relationship with Freya. Max views both fathers as filth for treating a marriage purely as a business transaction.
Max feels like trash for accepting the Duke's terms in exchange for the princess.
A memory reveals the second condition of the agreement was to never consummate the marriage. Max accepted these terms 5 years ago to save a failing steel mill and avoid prison.
Desperate for freedom, Max considers how to escape his current inhuman and controlled existence.
The Duke dismisses Freya's visits as childish whims that Max has no need to indulge.
The Duke smugly observes that Freya still favors Max despite all the events that occurred.
Max maintains a stoic and unreadable expression while facing the Duke's probing and judgmental gaze. Max begins to suspect that today was not actually the first time the two met.
The Duke demands that Max keeps his promise to return Freya in a pure, unblemished state.
Max realizes the Duke views him as a toy and senses that their arrangement is ending.
Freya reaches out to tap the shoulder of the silver-haired man in the clap.
The silver-haired man turns around quickly, appearing surprised by the unexpected physical contact. Freya stands gracefully against a background of flowers, presenting a picture of refined elegance.
Freya asks the silver-haired man to show her around his prestigious jockey club.
The silver-haired man looks down at Freya with a noticeably strained and weary expression. Narrative text identifies the wealthy individuals present as the most prestigious families of the empire.
Freya identifies the man as Monsieur Draport, the influential owner of the Lutz Bank.
Draport acknowledges her status as Madame Russell while Freya mentions her account at his bank.
Freya explains that she has a specific favor to ask of him today. Narrative describes Freya as the disreputable heir facing the scrutiny of the early club members.
Draport wonders if Freya is oblivious to the predatory gazes of the surrounding noblemen.
Freya asks Draport about his personal insights regarding the rumored changes to the railway law.
Draport firmly informs Freya that political discussions are not appropriate for a woman. Draport reflects on showing courtesy only for the Duke's sake despite his own house's power.
Draport decides that there is no need to maintain manners before such a wild woman.
Freya apologizes for any perceived rudeness while Draport sharply interrupts her to address her status.
Draport reluctantly asked for her question, which involves the specific freight rates for train Carnot.
Narrative text states that everyone in the building understands the bill's design except for Freya.
Freya asks Draport for his assistance so that she can help her struggling husband.
Draport realizes that Freya is attempting to lobby for the withdrawal of a legislative amendment.
Narrative text recounts how people pitied the unloved daughter despite her currently brazen social actions.
Draport suggests that Freya should have consulted her powerful father for such a request instead.
Freya appears flustered and embarrassed, admitting she did not think her request through properly.
Draport becomes visibly annoyed as Freya displays a childish and overly emotional reaction to him. Draport tells Freya to leave such matters to men and advises her to depart immediately. Noblemen gossip mockingly about women being unable to grasp the complexities of bank-related politics.
Draport thinks to himself that his blunt dismissal is the most helpful consideration he offers.
Freya watches the departing man with a calculating and sharp gaze hidden beneath her hat.
Max admits that their social engagement did not go well as they prepare to leave. Max stares downward with a look of quiet frustration and exhaustion after the social ordeal.
Max asks why they bothered to come if the situation was going to be awkward.
Freya sits silently in the carriage, reflecting on the events that just transpired in the club.
Narrative reveals Freya staged the rejection to make Draport seem unlikely to ever help her.
Freya explains that the venue and her father's presence contributed to the awkward social atmosphere.
Max questions why she insisted on coming all this way if she anticipated such awkwardness.
Max addresses Freya by her full name and demands to know what she is thinking. Max asks if her actions today were intended to meddle in his business for the Duke.
Freya realizes that overcoming Max's deep-seated distrust will be a very long and difficult process. Max continues to watch Freya with intense skepticism and doubt regarding her true social motives.
Freya decides to end the line of questioning by offering him one final definitive answer.
Freya tells Max to remember her actions today if he ever finds himself doubting her again.
Freya vows that everything she did and will do in the future is for Max. Max looks away from her, his expression reflecting the weight of her sudden and firm declaration.
Freya reflects on the deep distrust Max feels while a floral backdrop suggests a softening mood. Narrative text tells Max to remember her words whenever it becomes too hard to believe her.
Narrative recalls Max's past promise to trust her while acknowledging the doubt he feels today.
Freya promises to rescue Max from his current situation just as he once helped her. Max remains stoic and silent while he listens to her vow to restore his lost joy.
Freya asks Max to trust her just this once as she reaches out to him.
Narrative text notes that Max was once entirely alone with only Freya by his side.
Believing her husband must finally accept her, the woman feels a sense of relief. She desires to forget her past mistakes and start over to protect her lifelong love. Max asks if she is finally satisfied after seeing the damage her love caused him.
A hand reaches out toward Max as he walks away into the distance.
Tears stream down Freya's face as she experiences a moment of profound despair.
A doctor with silver hair maintains a professional and somber expression during a consultation.
Freya explains that her past feels like waking from a vivid and terrifying nightmare. The doctor notes that memories are persistent and cannot be erased as easily as one hopes. He describes the mind as having separate compartments where memories of varying intensity are stored. He explains that forgetting is merely the act of losing track of a memory's location.
Freya listens as the doctor emphasizes that emotions are the keys to accessing stored memories.
He proposes using hypnosis to dilute her emotions until her memories feel like someone else's story.
Freya dabs her eyes while he explains that her painful memories will eventually fade away.
A close-up shows her looking away, lost in thought regarding the doctor's explanation. The doctor warns of a permanent void and asks if she truly wants to erase Max. Freya tells the doctor not to worry while she holds her handkerchief with determination. Freya smiles and confirms her full understanding of the risks and consequences involved. The doctor stares at her with a look of surprise or confusion at her resolve.
Memories of her 22nd year reveal a cycle of social mockery, isolation, and hysteria.
Freya explains she erased the 2 weeks she spent obsessing over Max before their divorce. She notes her high susceptibility to hypnosis allowed her to successfully bury that painful time.
Max wonders who would have told his wife such a thing about her own nature.
Freya offers a calm and peaceful smile as she reflects on her current state. The silver-haired man stares in shock at the revelation Freya has shared with him.
A close-up focuses on the man's necktie as he processes the weight of the conversation.
A formal document announces the official start of a major regional railway construction project. A blurred newspaper provides a glimpse into the public's perception of the current business climate.
Monsieur Draport smiles at the newspaper, declaring that their grand plan is finally beginning.
Draport envisions building a nationwide passenger rail system with Max at the helm.
Draport ponders what Freya's true intentions are behind her recent and unusual social maneuvers.
Max looks down at the papers, his face partially obscured by his blonde hair.
Freya asks Max to trust her just this once as she looks at him pleadingly. A transition shows Max's weary face beneath a soft floral patterned background. Max reflects on his exhaustion regarding his wife's constant emotional outbursts and tears. Freya vows to lead Max out of his current darkness just as he once saved her.
Max looks at her with an unreadable expression, his piercing blue eyes fixed on her.
Draport questions if Freya's actions are simply a ploy to keep Max by her side.
Draport says he will allow her to continue her meetings despite their strange nature.
He argues that even if she fails to persuade her father, they lose nothing.
Max asks for clarification on what Draport meant regarding his wife's potential failure.
Draport explains that rumors of her public humiliation will serve as a useful distraction.
He notes that while Freya's reputation suffers, their business project gains a strategic advantage.
The Duke's daughter's actions cause political and business rivals to hesitate in their opposition. Max agrees that the current turn of events is beneficial for their overall railway project.
Text reveals that Freya's success in manipulating the lawmakers exceeded all of their initial expectations.
Max remains contemplative while the scene shifts, showing the distance between the two business partners.
Report asks Max if he still harbors any romantic feelings for his estranged wife.
Max reflects on how their relationship has degraded from a fairy tale to a transaction.
Max looks away, convinced that their situation is beyond the point of any meaningful change. Report mentions that Freya will be absent from work this week, seeking Max's confirmation.
Report notes Freya is taking another week off and questions her sudden interest in the business.
Report suggests Freya might run the business alone, prompting Max to ask for clarification on her status.
Report dismisses the idea, suggesting she will remarry and potentially resume her maiden name as Madame Blanc. Max looks toward Monsieur Report and asks him to explain the meaning behind his previous statement. Report explains that the Duke would never allow his only daughter to remain a divorcee for long.
Report suggests a new marriage registration might be filed before the divorce papers are even processed.
Looking away with a somber expression, Max acknowledges that Report's assessment of the situation is likely true.
Max reflects on his past assumption that Freya would remain alone at Blanc Castle following their divorce.
Max considers that the Duke would never leave Freya on her own while looking at a portrait.
Monsieur Draport concludes his observation with a single word as he watches Max process the information.
Freya Blanc reads a newspaper with a serious expression, scanning for updates on Max's business project.
The newspaper headline announces a public offering for the Lute Saint-Germain-en-Laye railway project.
Freya notes that Max's project has begun and that securing capital is the key to its success.
Freya intends to involve Lutzbank to prevent Tristan from managing the project's investors alone.
Freya rests her hand on the newspaper, deciding to lie flat and wait for the right moment.
Freya stands alone in the grand room, looking out the window while a soft background suggests transition. Narrative text identifies the Longchamp racecourse as the location for the next upcoming horse race.
Freya smiles calmly, noting that unlike last time, she must prepare her next move very carefully.
Freya looks determined, thinking that while her last move was a request, this time is a threat.
Standing in a blue-tinted room, Freya examines a large painting hanging on the wall. The painting on the wall depicts a lone figure struggling to push a giant rock up a cliff.
Freya is startled by a sudden presence and turns quickly to see who has entered the room.
Max appears, and Freya reflects on how he used to drift away when she wanted him near. Max and Freya stand far apart in the large room, their shadows stretching across the wooden floor. Freya watches Max, realizing that everything has become incredibly simple as they stand together in the room.
Max asks if that specific painting caught her eye at the exhibition and why she chose it. Freya says she liked it, privately wondering if Max is making idle conversation to build trust.
Freya decides not to share the painting's true meaning, as it would be hard to believe. Max informs Freya that the location depicted in the painting is known as Lover's Cliff. Max tells Freya that he knows the area around Blanc Castle better than she does. A somber close-up focuses on Max as he mentions his superior knowledge of the local area.
A flashback shows a young boy with a suitcase standing alone before the castle's massive doors. Narrative text explains that after that moment, the boy spent every vacation at Blanc Castle.
Narrative describes his life as a puppet, bound to fixed times to please the young lady.
A close-up shows the feet of a person standing precisely at the very edge of a cliff.
Narrative recounts a legend where lovers making a vow on this cliff fulfill eternal love.
The young boy gazes at the sunset, imagining a secret escape and a new life together.
The young boy wonders what the white princess would say if he asked to run away. Two hooded figures are seen running through a golden forest, holding hands as they escape together. The young boy and girl are seen working together in a kitchen, a memory of simpler times. He reflects that time with the young lady helped him endure his neglected life at Blanc Castle. The scene shifts as he recalls imagining a future on that cliff that would never come.
Back in the present, Max asks what brought her there if she didn't come for the paintings.
Max wonders why Freya is standing before him again after he spent years wanting to escape.
Max reflects on his return to Blanc as its child despite his long-standing desire for freedom. Freya watches her husband with a neutral expression, waiting for him to continue his line of questioning. A close-up of Max's face reveals his internal struggle as he silently wonders why she has returned. Max mentions releasing a business announcement article today, which Freya confirms she has already seen. Max says they will issue shares tomorrow. Freya admits she was thinking of buying some herself.
Max asks if she plans to buy shares, wondering if she is practicing being suspicious.
Freya emphasizes her status as a business partner, asking what investment is more profitable than railroads.
Max remains silent, his golden hair partially obscuring his face as he processes her bold words.
A focused gaze reveals Max's inner calculation as he wonders if Freya truly understands the stakes.
Freya stares back with a searching expression, considering the heavy weight of the trust between them.
Monsieur Droport's voice cuts through the tension, questioning if Max still harbors feelings for his wife.
Max looks away, his expression hardening into a mask of professional indifference toward the personal query.
Freya watches Max walk away, thanking him for traveling such a long distance to speak.
Freya calls out to Max, causing him to halt and turn back with visible shock. Distressing memories of thorns and blood flash before Max as he stares at his estranged wife.
Freya asks her husband the painful question of whether he ever loved her for even a moment.
Max reflects that his feelings were a vicious obsession and all he ever showed was falsehood. Max ponders a future where they might be free from the chains that imprison their lives. Freya listens as Max repeats her promise to lead him out of his current dark situation. Looking back one last time, Max offers a somber wish for Freya's eventual success.
Max exits the room, his long shadow trailing behind him across the polished wooden floor.
Max's mother approaches him in the hallway, asking if he has time for a brief conversation.
Max dismisses his mother's approach, stating he has no desire to hear anything regarding Freya.
His mother smiles coldly, clarifying that she actually wants to discuss the upcoming salon on Saturday. She argues that his presence would please the guests, while Max focuses on the business announcement.
Max ends the conversation about Freya, agreeing to follow his mother to her room to continue.
His mother insists that, as the host, he must properly greet guests under the Roussel family name.
Max's mother schemes, hoping the maid will tell Freya of Max's attendance to provoke a breakdown.
Max reacts with a start, noticing something unsettling in his mother's sudden change of tone. She questions why he has time for Freya but cannot spare a single moment for guests. Clarifies that his primary reason for visiting was to discuss urgent matters related to the company.
His mother reluctantly accepts his explanation, sighing as she tells him to go and rest.
Max issues a final warning for his mother to stop interfering with Freya for her own sake.
He firmly restates his intention to handle all matters regarding his wife without any outside assistance.
His mother erupts in anger, reminding him of her past efforts to look after the girl. She dismissively agrees to stop caring, not wanting to sour their relationship over such a trivial matter.
Seated in her room, Max's mother asks the butler if he has noticed anything unusual lately.
The butler responds respectfully, stating that nothing particularly strange has occurred between the husband and wife.
She orders the butler to maintain a close watch and report any suspicious behavior immediately.
Max's mother recalls Max's words regarding Freya leading him out, her face illuminated by blue light. She resolves to crush Freya under her heel, wondering where exactly the girl intends to go.
A firm knock echoes through the quiet room as someone seeks entrance to see the madam.
Mila enters the room with a cheerful smile, ready to attend to Freya's immediate needs.
Freya stands by the window, lost in a deep and melancholy state of quiet reflection.
Freya ponders the dark meaning behind choosing a place for eternal vows as a site for death.
She realizes Max deliberately chose the cliff to die, understanding the legend's true significance at last. Looking toward the light, Freya wonders if her husband intended to say an eternal farewell.
Mila watches Freya with a look of deep concern, asking what she should do to help.
A faint, sad smile touches Freya's lips as she processes the revelation about the cliff. Mila blames the dark painting for Freya's strange thoughts and moves to provide her comfort. Draping a shawl over Freya, Mila questions if the wish should be for a reunion instead.
Narrative text confirms Freya returned to that same cliff 6 months after her husband's reported death.
Freya stands at the very edge of the precipice at night, her white nightgown billowing. She admits her intention was to join him in death, even if only in that tragic way. Narrative reveals Freya's regret, realizing Max might have truly desired an eternal separation from her.
Freya clutches her shawl and looks down in sorrow, her green eyes filled with unshed tears. A recruitment notice for translators, proofreaders, and editors is displayed prominently against a dark background.
A silver-haired man in elegant attire offers a polite expression of gratitude while surrounded by flowers.
The silver-haired man praises a recent victory as several noble figures gather near a horse.
He reflects on Freya's pride while observers gossip about her playing hard to get again. He questions the standing of a new nobility with a piercing, analytical gaze at his surroundings. A man dismisses assumptions, noting the changed relationship between the Duke and the White Princess. Walking away, the silver-haired man expresses his annoyance at the inability of others to converse quietly.
He mockingly describes a former classmate's rise from a social pariah to a supposedly successful businessman. Rumors circulate regarding a commoner's military service and the Duke's potentially malicious intent behind his assignment.
The Grand Military Academy stands as a prestigious rite of passage for ambitious young noblemen seeking success.
Max Roussel reflects on the harsh treatment expected for someone of revolutionary blood within such an institution. The silver-haired man finds it thoughtless to belittle a man who successfully revived a business and expanded into railways.
Two men share a knowing smile as they discuss the heritage and reputation of their business rivals. Narrative explains the discrimination against Assyrians as he ponders the humble meaning of Sir Delaporte's surname. He stands alone, his thoughts clouded by the weight of historical prejudices and shifting social ranks. Noblemen defend imperial appointments while women gossip scandalously about a lady's disgraceful entrance into the club. He contemplates the current situation, wondering where exactly his next move will lead him in this struggle.
A sudden realization or presence causes the silver-haired man to pause and react with visible astonishment.
Marquise Tristan appears, his presence marked by a calm demeanor amidst a backdrop of vibrant purple flowers. A group of men stands together in a hallway, their focus shifting toward an approaching figure. Questions arise regarding Tristan's presence at the racetrack and his potential dealings with the Republican assemblymen. The struggle for control over railway and canal interests creates a divide between royalists and Republicans.
The silver-haired man finds it ironic that Max Roussel handed canal business over to the Duke.
Tristan's intervention shifts the conflict into a battle between hardline noble factions and more moderate imperial supporters.
The weight of the political maneuvers causes the silver-haired man to look away in quiet contemplation.
Unexpected visitors offer congratulations on a recent victory while the recipient questions their identity and motives.
His expression sharpens as he hears an intruder within his private carriage, demanding to know who they are.
A cloaked woman remains inside the carriage, refusing to leave despite the silver-haired man's growing frustration.
He realizes the intruder is Freya, even as she firmly instructs him to stay and listen.
Freya begins to reveal her identity, her movements measured and confident despite the tense and confrontational atmosphere.
A close-up of his eye reveals his shock as he begins to recognize the woman sitting before him.
Freya offers a calm, enigmatic smile as she finally reveals her face to the startled man in the carriage.
Delaporte dismisses any talk regarding amendments, demanding she exit his carriage immediately to avoid a scene. Freya questions his attempt to kick her out, while he threatens to forcibly remove her if she persists.
He considers her previous habits of running away, realizing that getting caught together would ruin their reputations. Freya remains perfectly still, her emerald eyes fixed on him as she prepares to deliver her next statement.
Addressing him as Sir Achille Delaporte, she reminds him that a baron cannot forcibly remove an imperial princess.
She presents him with a choice: listen to her proposal or continue this undignified confrontation in a public carriage.
Achille Delaporte is momentarily silenced as he processes her bold ultimatum and the implications of her status. He reevaluates her as more than a sheltered woman, wondering if her previous behavior was a calculated illusion. He maintains that her efforts are useless and that he has no power to assist with the political amendment. Freya counters with a confident smile, asserting that he will indeed help her ensure the bill is rejected. He questions how he could possibly oppose a bill pushed by Duke Blanc, the Empire's most powerful man.
He insists that she has chosen the wrong person for such a task, claiming it is beyond his abilities.
Freya clarifies that she is not interested in the minor bill he assumes she wants to block.
She suggests that a much larger financial stake is possible, catching Achille Delaporte completely off guard.
Achille clenches his fist, wondering who influenced Freya to act so boldly and overturn his expectations again.
He realizes the young princess is attempting aggressive negotiations, a side of her he clearly did not expect.
Achille demands to know who is behind her proposal, inviting her hidden partners to come out and face him.
Tristan reflects on the reason he appeared at the racetrack, watching the young fox navigate her complex scheme. Achille Delaporte stares in wide-eyed shock as he begins to recognize the woman's true nature.
Freya emphasizes that they are alone and explicitly declares herself to be his new trading partner.
Achille reflects on his surprise, noting that this encounter marks the third time she caught him off guard.
He admits to underestimating the princess and acknowledges he can influence the clause despite the significant personal risk. Achille observes that since she prepared so thoroughly, she must have a fitting reward ready for him. He notes that the ducal house surely wouldn't speak in empty words while contemplating her offer. Achille suggests that the mining rights owned by the ducal house would be an appropriate form of payment. Freya rejects his suggestion, explaining that the mines are already tied up in other difficult contracts.
She offers an alternative instead, her green eyes shimmering with a cunning and mysterious light. Leaning in with a smile, Freya asks if he has heard the rumors circulating through the Empire.
Achille waits in silent anticipation, his sharp gaze fixed on the woman sitting across from him. Freya mentions the rumor that the revolution would have failed without the Ashurians providing revolutionary funds.
Narration explains Ashurians funded the army to escape a life of scorn despite their talent for wealth.
Freya notes the futility of watching the republic they fought for crumble into pieces twice.
Achille asks why she is telling him this, questioning the relevance of this historical revolutionary talk.
Narrative text describes the Empire being swept into revolution when the Delaporte family secret was finally revealed.
Freya recalls that in her repeated lives, Asheville Delaporte was always the hero of the Republic.
She questions why Auguste, who supposedly despises nobility, would bother attending the imperial boarding school. Freya suggests the original goal was perhaps to create a second Max Russell through his education. She explains they couldn't make a powerful son-in-law the symbol of a new revolutionary army. A sudden, sharp movement creates a visual blur as the atmosphere in the carriage shifts. Achille holds a blade to her throat, questioning her about the commander of the new revolutionary army. He demands to know who told her that story. Freya claims she heard it from Bernat Russell. Freya privately thinks that while she is bluffing, it is currently impossible to verify her claim. Narrative text clarifies she only heard about the funds and the rest was her own conjecture. Freya tells him if she had verified it, he would be dealing with her father, not her. Achille asks what she hopes to gain, doubting anyone would risk their life for a trivial bill.
Freya looks at him with sudden vulnerability and asks for help to protect her husband's company.
Achille asks if she knows who is targeting her husband and whose hands the canal business was in. A look of calm confidence returns to Freya's face as she prepares to finish her proposal. Lowering his dagger, Achille realizes she was hiding a complex plan within a plan all along.
Freya offers a serene smile, appearing as a pure white flower despite her ruthless negotiating tactics.
Achille calls her condition for silence too extravagant. She offers to get him what he truly wants. Freya's radiant smile precedes the mention of her role as the spark of the Third Revolution. The scene transitions to a grand, sunlit library featuring an old map on a wooden easel. A silver-haired student with a ponytail dismissively rejects the idea of taking any more business lessons.
A blonde man mentions something about a dress from earlier this morning while looking at papers. Someone flips through a document containing architectural drawings and detailed text regarding urban planning.
Sitting on opposite couches, Freya asks Auguste about the date of the upcoming Imperial Ball.
Auguste looks toward her with a somber expression, remaining silent as he processes the sudden question.
Auguste stands up in surprise, asking where she is going as she prepares to leave the room.
Max mentions the jeweler on Vendome Square and asks if they can attend the ball as a couple.
Freya agrees, leading Max to state he will start on her dress tomorrow as he watches her.
Max suddenly seizes Freya by the shoulders, his intense gaze fixed on her neck as she gasps.
Startled by the sudden contact, Freya asks what is wrong while he stares at her throat. Well, that's one way to ruin the romantic mood and check for personal space.
Max notices a mark. Freya lies, claiming she was scratched by a branch while meeting Monsieur de Laporte.
Narrative text reveals the mark as a shallow, incised wound caused by someone skilled with a sword.
Looking away with a cold and calculating expression, Max reflects on the idea of giving a gift. A door creaks open as text notes the irony of the situation given their planned divorce.
A cheerful jeweler welcomes Max to the shop, asking if he is looking for a particular jewel.
The jewelry shop assistant welcomes a distinguished visitor and offers a full tour of the boutique.
Max Roussel sits inside the shop while the employee confirms her readiness to assist him.
The assistant claps her hands in delight, commenting on how romantic his gesture is. She displays several fine emerald sets and offers to create a custom design if desired.
A close-up of Freya's striking green eye highlights the visual connection to the emerald jewels.
Max Roussel looks pensive and pained as he contemplates his choices within the jewelry store.
The jeweler praises his excellent taste, noting a set previously crafted for a prominent lady.
Max begins writing on a document after being asked for his residence address for delivery.
He hesitates for a moment, his pen hovering over the paper as he pauses in thought.
A brilliant emerald necklace is showcased, shimmering with a radiant and expensive green light.
Paul the designer stands proudly with his assistant, eager to present his latest dress creation.
Freya looks back with a soft, peaceful expression during her fitting at the high-end boutique.
Paul appears momentarily stunned or unimpressed as he evaluates the final look of the gown.
Freya stands in a magnificent white dress, commanding the attention of everyone in the room. Touching her chest, Freya expresses her sincere gratitude to Paul for his masterful design work.
Paul boasts that his design is so perfect that any critic must have poor eyesight.
He and his assistant share a jubilant moment, clearly satisfied with the success of the fitting.
The scene transitions to the bustling city square where citizens in horse-drawn carriages pass by. Passers-by gossip about the disappearance of a lady in black and the appearance of the knacker.
Freya walks through the street in black while rumors regarding her supposed insanity follow her.
Narrative text describes the famous ghost story of Vincton Square involving a mysterious cloaked woman.
Freya reflects on the difficulty of her task but hopes to gain a reliable ally. She gazes through the window of the jewelry store where Max was seen earlier.
Freya suddenly stops walking, her attention caught by something or someone in the immediate vicinity.
A montage shows Max Roussel looking pleased while a shimmering jewel is displayed beside him.
Freya looks down with a melancholic expression, her eyes filled with a sense of longing.
As she walks away, the narration questions who the jewelry was actually intended for.
The season for their fated first meeting has not yet arrived.
Max Roussel contemplates having found someone he loves and his desire to reach that person. Freya remains partially hidden beneath her hat, her profile reflecting a quiet and somber mood.
Narration reflects on themes of betrayal, resentment, and the pain of losing someone unexpectedly.
The setting shifts to the ornate interior architecture of the prestigious Imperial boarding school.
Within the Grand Library, Auguste and Freya sit on couches while Max works nearby.
Auguste wonders why Freya is so quiet, suspecting it might be a new attention-seeking tactic.
Auguste mentions the time, prompting Freya to announce that she must leave the room.
Max Roussel is shown writing at his desk, appearing deeply absorbed in his official paperwork. Freya bids them farewell, stating she will see them again the following week.
Auguste watches her depart, his face frozen in a look of mild surprise or confusion.
His expression turns into a glare as he continues to process her uncharacteristic behavior.
Max looks toward the door with a cold and calculating stare after Freya exits.
The grand double doors of the study remain closed, sealing the room in heavy silence.
A close-up of Max's face highlights his sharp, serious features as he dwells on his plans. Auguste remains in his seat, looking somewhat bothered by the lingering tension in the library.
Freya stands alone in a sunlit room, her white dress contrasting with the bright window. She looks out at the garden, her expression suggesting a deep state of internal conflict.
Thoughts reveal that Freya is internally shaken by the fact that Max bought jewelry recently. A blonde woman in a black dress enters the room accompanied by a formal butler.
She announces a salon she's hosting tomorrow and insists Freya and Max attend together. The woman acknowledges Freya's dislike for her, but demands she at least greet the guests.
Freya calmly agrees to the request, signaling her intention to attend the upcoming social event.
Mathilde confirms she will see someone tomorrow while her gray-haired butler waits silently nearby.
Alone in her room, Freya looks out the window as she prepares for tomorrow.
She remains lost in thought, her unreadable expression reflecting the gravity of her upcoming task.
The night sky is dominated by a bright moon as text mentions its hidden side.
Freya tells Matilda that thanks to her, they get to reveal the moon's dark side.
Smirking confidently, Mathilde wears an emerald set similar to the one Max Roussel recently purchased.
The scene shifts to a grand conservatory where a group of ladies has gathered.
Mathilde welcomes the guests, stating the purpose is to clear up rumors about the Roussel family.
She thanks Madame Rossignol for attending. The redhead says an invitation from her is always welcome.
Madame Rossignol brings up the Roussel marriage, noting it has surprisingly lasted 5 years now.
Matilda hides a sly smile behind her teacup as the conversation begins to turn hostile.
She comments on Freya's aggressive nature and expresses surprise that she hasn't had a child yet.
Mathilde suggests there must be a valid reason why everyone else chooses to avoid Freyr. A teacup is set down as gossip turns to Freya's wedding and religious standing.
The ladies at the table suddenly turn their heads in surprise at a new arrival.
Mademoiselle Saulnier stands nearby, her expression serious as she listens to the ongoing gossip.
Madame Rossignol claims they speak out of concern, and Mathilde agrees that today is for clearing misunderstandings.
Saulnier asks if they can repeat those words in front of the Duke's daughter as Freya enters.
Freya stands calmly in a dark red gown, surprising the ladies with her poised arrival.
Mathilde formally welcomes Freya to the conservatory and invites her to join the group.
Matilda admits she planned to gossip and offers Freya a seat at the table.
Freya remarks that the setting is far too shabby to be called a proper salon.
She points out that every guest present seems to harbor a personal grudge against her.
An uncomfortable silence falls over the conservatory as Freya stares down her detractors.
With a pleasant smile, Freya encourages the group to continue with what they were saying.
Her gaze fixes on Madame Rossignol, signaling that the direct confrontation has finally begun.
Freya questions the nature of their talk, while Madame Rossignol asks why she can't worry about Max.
Madame Rossignol asks if Freya plans to kidnap her again or settle for threats instead.
Mathilde recalls Freya's past scandal, while Rossignol boasts about the presence of many witnesses.
Freya remains serene amidst the accusations, appearing completely unfazed by the hostile environment.
Mathilde looks at her with growing unease, wondering why she's remaining so incredibly calm.
Narrative text reflects on how bad rumors travel fast while Freya touches her black back. Freya denies ever trying to abduct Madame Rossignol or threatening any other ladies in the past.
Staring directly at her, Freya watches as Madame Rossignol reacts with visible, mounting anger.
Freya explains Rossignol never entered the carriage. Rossignol furiously claims she fought her way out and ran. Rossignol mocks Freya's failure to win Max's heart and tells her to give up the chase.
Freya suggests that Rossignol's frustration stems from her own failed pursuit of Max Roussel's heart.
Madame Rossignol is stunned as Freya mentioned she previously couldn't understand why she was being framed.
Narrative text reveals Freya's past desperation and her inability to comprehend why she was targeted.
Freya notes that while other ladies accepted her earlier proposals, Madame Rossignol remained an exception.
Freya accuses her of harboring secret feelings for Max, causing Madame Rossignol to panic visibly.
Rossignol calls the accusation slander, but Freya reveals she knows about her secret, ongoing divorce lawsuit.
Freya highlights the irony of Rossignol's previous claims while they were in the middle of a divorce suit.
Madame Rossignol's face contorts in shock as she realizes her deepest secret has been exposed.
Narrative text emphasizes that the divorce was a secret, unknown even to their own parents.
The entire tea party is paralyzed by the sudden and devastating reveal of the scandal. Rossignol tries to deny any connection to Max while visibly shaken by Freya's accurate information.
Freya tells her to drop the Victim Act and offers to prove her claims with evidence. Opening her bag, she pulls out a document noting the rules for wielding information.
The surrounding ladies look on in absolute horror as the power dynamic shifts completely.
Mathilde watches with mounting concern as the social gathering takes an unexpectedly dark and serious turn.
The brown-haired woman remains focused, her green eyes narrowed as she prepares her next move.
Freya lists several high-profile family names, causing the red-haired woman to stare in wide-eyed, sweating terror.
The green-haired guest questions the relevance of the names as Freya identifies Madame d'Alembert as involved. Madame d'Alembert asks about her own actions while the red-haired woman desperately tries to signal silence. Freya shifts the focus away from the minor guests to address the real target of her accusations. Tensions rise in the garden parlor as the guests realize the tea party is actually a trap.
Freya leans in to inform the shocked guests that the list details Rossignol's secret meetings with men.
The brown-haired guest gazes in horror as the scandalous purpose of Freya's list is finally revealed. Rossignol grows defensive and denounces Freya as a lunatic who is merely spewing random thoughts aloud.
Freya offers to reveal the exact times and locations of the meetings using her investigative skills.
The red-haired woman panics, screaming that Freya is lying and urging the guests to ignore her. Matilda looks downcast while narrative text reflects on the futility of trying to erase a nightmare.
Narrative text presents the chilling choice between trying to escape a nightmare or becoming someone else's.
Rossignol trembles with fury and fear as her scandalous secrets are laid bare before the elite.
The red-haired woman's eye twitches as she fruitlessly screams that the accusations are merely slander. Rossignol screams a series of frantic denials and insults while a hand grips a wine glass tightly.
Narrative text explains that Rossignol will be cast out of society as gossip spreads among the ladies. Freya's cold gaze remains fixed on her opponent, unmoved by the dramatic scenes unfolding before her. The green-haired guest stands frozen in shock, unable to process the chaos erupting at the table. Max Russell stands tall, his dark suit visibly stained with wine as he intervenes in the confrontation. Max Russell instructs the red-haired woman to put down her glass as she reacts with visible shock. Max officially ends the afternoon tea gathering and asks all present guests to leave the estate immediately. Mathilde awkwardly thanks the host and leaves the garden parlor along with the other retreating guests.
Mathilde asks Max if he is unharmed, her concern masking the embarrassment of the public scene.
Narrative text notes that the son is now drenched in wine intended for his own wife.
Max asks his mother to go inside ahead of him because he has matters to discuss privately.
The grand parlor falls quiet as the guests retreat, leaving the central figures to their conflict.
Max questions Rossignol about their settled divorce trial as she clenches her hands in visible frustration.
Rossignol recalls how she once felt confident her beauty would make Max a good candidate for marriage.
Rossignol questions why the Duchess is socially acceptable while she is being rejected and cast out.
Max's cold expression reflects his disdain as Rossignol recalls storming his office to cause a scene.
Narrative text describes a coerced night of indiscretion that has led to the current social disaster. Rossignol looks pained as she recalls being rejected despite her belief in the power of her smile. The red-haired woman realizes she was never an innocent princess locked away in a high tower. Rossignol reflects on her unfilial behavior toward the crown and wonders if she should have stayed away. With a final curse, the red-haired woman retreats into the shadows, wishing misery upon those present. Max stands silently beside Freya, the weight of the day's revelations hanging heavy in the air. Freya tells Max they will talk later and decides to head inside first, ending their interaction. Freya pauses in the sunlight garden, her attention caught by someone waiting nearby to speak. The scene shifts as the brown-haired woman and a pink-haired girl meet in the grand hall. The pink-haired girl greets Freya and mentions that she recognizes her from the department store lounge. Freya accepts the pink-haired girl's gratitude, acknowledging the strange timing of their second meeting. The pink-haired girl requests permission to write an article that neutrally describes the day's scandalous events.
The girl identifies her newspaper as Present Lutece, acknowledging its smaller scale compared to more famous publications.
A close-up of the pink-haired girl highlights her newfound confidence as she approaches the influential woman.
Freya questions if the mademoiselle understands that publishing this will put her at odds with major newspapers. The journalist's eyes sparkle with ambition, unbothered by the risks associated with such a scandalous story. The pink-haired girl insists that her organization will bear full responsibility for the consequences of the report. The journalist explains that her parents taught her the press must deliver information neutrally and objectively.
A detailed lace dress serves as the backdrop for the journalist's final remarks during the encounter.
The brown-haired woman repeats the name of the newspaper, Present Lutece, with a contemplative and observant expression. The pink-haired girl explains her presence, noting her parents' long acquaintance with Madame Rossignol and their busy schedules. Freya offers a warm and genuine smile, appearing pleased by the young journalist's determination and professional conduct. The pink-haired girl expresses her sincere gratitude for receiving permission, promising she will not disappoint with her report. A focused close-up captures Freya's piercing green eye as she deeply considers the implications of the journalist's request. Back at the estate, Matilda reacts with shock and confusion as Max Russell unexpectedly arrives at the grand parlor.
Max remains silent, internally concluding his mother must have summoned Freya to the estate to torment her yet again.
Max bluntly instructs his mother to go rest in the countryside for a while, leaving Mathilde speechless and trembling. Max turns his back on his mother, signaling that his decision regarding her sudden departure is final and non-negotiable. Max explains that he will find her a suitable estate where she must stay for approximately 2 years. Mathilde becomes hysterical, questioning if this exile is due to Freya and demanding to know if her efforts were wasted.
Matilda argues her actions were for him, claiming he could have been matched with an imperial princess without the Duchess.
Max coldly counters that if a princess truly wanted him, not even a duke could have prevented the match.
Matilda continues her desperate defense, arguing that a different marriage would have secured him a title and noble lifestyle sooner.
Narrative text notes that while Max was a fairy tale prince to Freya, reality for him was much darker.
The narration identifies Max as the grandson of a scholar of political conduct as he stares forward with disdain.
Max reminds his mother that Freya's dowry saved the family business and funded their current home and comfortable lifestyle. Max walks away, telling his mother to choose a location or he will, promising things will change upon her return. Mathilde screams her son's name in despair as the heavy doors of the parlor slam shut, sealing her fate. Left alone, Mathilde trembles as the narrative explains she was content losing her husband as long as Max remained. In a fit of rage, Matilda shatters a lamp as the text describes her feeling abandoned for the foolish Duchess. The room is bathed in an ominous red light as Matilda seethes, her screams of fury echoing through the estate. An abstract field of red and black conveys the intense, destructive hatred consuming the discarded mother's heart. The scene shifts back to a quiet, sunlit room where Freya sits alone, seemingly waiting for a private conversation. Freya remains silent, her expression unreadable as she reflects on the recent chaotic events and her husband's sudden intervention.
Max addresses his wife, mentioning he didn't expect her at the salon after hearing she intended to go alone.
Standing before her, Max suggests that accompanying one's spouse is a marital duty and asks if he was mistaken.
Freya is stunned that he came for her, but Max focuses on his plan to settle things with his mother.
A close-up of the blonde-haired man reveals his resolve as he confirms the decision to exile his mother was his.
Freya looks up at him with wide green eyes, questioning why he would take such a drastic step for her.
Max states to start trusting her, promising that if she acts for him, he will do the same.
Freya looks toward Max, her composed mask slipping as she processes the sincerity of his offer and his newfound support. Internally, Freya pleads with him not to be good to her, fearing her changing feelings might make her possessive. Freya admits to herself that his kind expressions make her foolishly start hoping for a different future between them. The brown-haired woman tightly clasps her hands together, a subtle sign of the deep emotional conflict raging within her.
Freya sits in silence, the back of her head to the viewer as she attempts to steady her racing heart.
A newspaper article details the scandalous affairs of Eva Rossignol, shifting the title of worst villainess away from Freya. A black-haired man with cold purple eyes is addressed as master by his attentive butler in a private library.
The butler informs the black-haired man, Marquis Tristan, that a letter has arrived from the disgraced Countess Rossignol.
From a high vantage point, the library is shown as a place of wealth and secrets where Tristan manages his affairs.
Rossignol's letter thanks Tristan for past help and offers to provide information to strike a blow against the Duke's heir.
Eva Rossignol is shown writing the vengeful letter, her eyes filled with a desperate need to reclaim her lost honor.
Marquis Tristan questions if the red-haired woman has lost her mind now that she has been backed into a corner.
With total indifference to her plight, the black-haired master coldly orders his butler to burn the woman's letter immediately. Tristan's gaze remains sharp and calculating as he shifts his focus toward a more interesting development in the capital. Looking toward a garden silhouette, Tristan notes that Freya has begun to move, recalling her provocation at the department store.
The purple-eyed Marquis admits he did not expect the Duchess to act with such boldness and strategic precision.
Tristan clenches his hand, reflecting that despite her perceived shortcomings, Freya is still the cub of a powerful lion. The Marquise wonders about the extent of her preparations and what grand goal she is ultimately aiming to achieve. Tristan anticipates that the young lady's performance will make this year's Imperial Ball far from boring. The Marquis reflects that his challenger must learn the weight of opposing the powerful Tristan name. A clear sky signifies a shift in the day as new developments begin to unfold. Auguste smiles broadly while reviewing the latest edition of the Prison Loose newspaper in the office. Auguste reports that scandalous articles about Madame Rossignol's multiple affairs have prompted investigations across high society. Max questions the news as narrative text explains that society is starting to view Freya differently.
Social trends shift as noble ladies begin emulating Freya by visiting her preferred second-hand clothing shop.
Auguste amusedly notes that even his own family members have joined the trend of visiting the shop.
Max realizes that it will now be difficult for anyone to openly mock his wife's reputation.
Auguste speculates on Freya's next move, wondering if another person close to them is her target.
He suggests that the newspaper that first slandered her might be the next target for her revenge.
Narrative text identifies Marquis Tristan as the individual most likely to be Freya's upcoming opponent. Max considers the suspicious connection between his mother, the Tristan family, and the past scandal's timing. Auguste confirms that the investigation into the proposal letter yielded very little information due to its secrecy. Auguste explains that the Tristan family visited Blanc Castle just before the canal fraud scandal ruined Freya's father. Despite his personal reservations, Auguste acknowledges his duty to follow Max's orders regarding the ongoing investigation. Auguste warns Max to be cautious, reminding him of Freya's formidable royal bloodline and hidden potential. Max remains silent, his focused expression revealing the deep conflict regarding his wife's true intentions. The afternoon sun shines brightly over the estate, marking a momentary pause in the internal drama. Freya reads a letter from the boutique confirming they will finish her dress for the upcoming ball. A personal note from Innsfernell invites Freya to reach out if she needs any additional assistance. Freya feels confident in her plans, knowing she can rely on the assets she has secured. Freya smiles as she imagines Inz's joy over the sudden influx of business caused by the scandal. A crowd of wealthy customers flocks to the second-hand boutique, signaling a massive expansion for the business. Freya vows to act as a protector for her allies to ensure their future prosperity remains secure.
Thoughts turn to the possibility of clearing Freya's name now that her accuser's true nature is exposed.
A cheerful maid serves tea to her mistress, unaware of the complex schemes Freya is currently managing. Freya understands that public opinion is fickle and could easily turn against her with the slightest provocation. In a vision of prejudice, multiple hands point accusingly at Freya amidst a field of dark roses. Freya recalls her past lives where she was perpetually trapped in the role of a social outcast. Determined to break the cycle, Freya stares forward with a gaze that reflects her newfound resolve. As she sips her tea, Freya mentally prepares for the significant events scheduled to happen that day.
Narrative text confirms that today is the day Max's mother, Matilda, is finally exiled from the estate.
The maid informs Freya that the butler wishes to discuss important matters once the Grand Madam departs.
Freya enjoys a moment of solitude on the balcony, watching the day progress as her plans materialize.
The sun sets as the butler reports that Mathilde went out secretly before her final departure.
Internal deductions suggest that Mathilde met with a secret contact she intended to hide from the household.
Freya thanks Mr. Lorenzo for his diligence in reporting the former mistress's suspicious movements before she left.
The butler asks for instructions on managing the family assets and staff previously under Matilda's direct control.
Freya assumes full authority over the household as the butler bows in respectful acknowledgement of her position.
The heavy doors close, symbolizing the definitive end of the mother's influence over the Roussel family estate.
Freya recalls a painful past timeline where she desperately clung to Max while being crushed by Matilda's schemes.
A shadowed image of Max highlights the cold indifference he once felt toward his struggling, hysterical wife.
An ominous voice from the past mocks Freya's desperation, finding her misery convenient for their own goals.
Matilda's cruel smile lingers in Freya's memory as a reminder of the malice she once endured.
Freya's hand trembles as she grips the fabric, the weight of past traumas still haunting her present. Narrative text emphasizes that in this life the roles are reversed. Matilda is gone, and Freya remains.
Max stands with his back turned, his presence now a source of complicated hope rather than despair.
Freya wonders if she can become a true partner who Max can return to for genuine peace. Watching the sunset, Freya allows herself to hope for a future defined by tranquility rather than conflict.
Max and Auguste descend the red-carpeted staircase together in the quiet estate.
Hearing a voice call his name, the blonde man pauses and looks upward. Freya stands alone on the staircase, watching her husband with a hesitant expression.
A close-up reveals the brown-haired woman's wide eyes as she reacts to Max's presence.
Max stops walking to face Freya, their silent gaze bridging the distance between them. The blonde man gently reaches out, his hand nearing the flushed face of his wife. Amidst a floral atmosphere, Max cradles Freya's cheek, their eyes locked in a tender moment.
Auguste watches the couple from the landing, noting the intimate development between the two. The gray-haired man offers a soft, satisfied smile before leaving the husband and wife alone.
A lavish meal is served as Max and Freya share a quiet, private dinner together. Freya looks down at her plate, her composed demeanor slightly shaken by the day's events. Freya mentions reading a book where characters find themselves in a very similar situation. The light of the setting sun fills the room as Max asks for more details.
Freya describes a tale of a prince and princess who finally met at a banquet.
The grand chandelier hangs above the silent dining hall, marking the weight of their conversation. Turning her attention to business, Freya addresses Max regarding the management of the household staff. Freya explains that Mr. Lorenzo will handle mansion affairs and report only critical matters to Max. She acknowledges that while Mr. Lorenzo is trustworthy, his management is not a permanent solution.
Max expresses his confidence in her abilities, but Freya remains hesitant about taking full control.
Max asserts that fulfilling marital duties is a bilateral obligation they both must uphold faithfully.
Narrative text confirms that Freya remains Madame Roussel and the mistress of the estate.
Max looks at her intently, emphasizing her status as his wife and the house's mistress. He challenges her to match his effort, questioning if his own dedication is currently lacking.
Freya quietly agrees to his terms as they stand together in the brightly lit hall.
Max inquires about her ball dress, and Freya explains its arrival is slightly delayed. Surrounded by blue flowers, Freya bids Max a gentle goodnight before retiring for the evening. A subtle, genuine smile plays on the blonde man's lips as he watches her go.
Max responds with a soft wish for sweet dreams as the couple parts ways.
Freya walks away with a blush, her heart racing from the sincerity of his words.
At the Présent Lucé office, a pink-haired man laments the burden of having a daughter.
His daughter retorts that she is his responsibility, while he jokingly offers her the presidency.
The father reflects on the social fallout following the Blanc princess and Count Rossignol scandal.
He admits that he underestimated the consequences of turning his back on high society's traditions.
An old advertisement signifies the beginning of the newspaper's rapid decline following the recent scandal. A blonde woman questions the severity of the retaliation they faced from the powerful noble families. The father explains they are being made an example of to force them into submission.
He recalls the mass resignations of his staff as the newspaper's bankruptcy became a certainty.
The group sits in despair, wondering how they will survive now that their livelihood is gone. Heavy footsteps echo through the office as a mysterious visitor approaches the despondent family. A sudden, loud noise interrupts the silence, startling everyone present in the office. The pink-haired man stands up abruptly, his expression one of shock and utter confusion. A scarred man with a mustache, Frol, enters the room and offers a casual greeting. Frol announces his intention to sign an advertisement contract, shocking the struggling newspaper owners. The former soldier explains he was discharged after sustaining a serious injury during his service. Frol describes his feeling bakery and asks if they accept advertisements from small local businesses. The daughter enthusiastically accepts as Frol offers to bring in even more business from friends. The blonde woman is moved to tears of relief by the stranger's unexpected and timely offer. The pink-haired father remains skeptical, narrowing his eyes as he analyzes the suspicious visitor. While the women celebrate, the blonde lady admits the sudden proposal seems too good to be true.
The suspicious father refuses the deal, fearing they are walking into a trap set by enemies.
Frol admits his casual tone caused doubt but insists the offer is completely legitimate.
The father demands to know their benefactor's identity while Frol maintains the deal's professional nature.
Although the donor remains anonymous, Frol offers to share a specific, mysterious alias instead.
Frohl reveals the alias is Madame Tinsel, leaving the pink-haired man visibly shaken by the name. Confusion fills the daughter as Frohl prepares to deliver a private message from their new patron.
When questioned by his daughter, the father feigns ignorance about the name despite his clear shock.
Internally, the father identifies the name as a symbol of revolution that shouldn't exist in Granson. A fiery silhouette represents the dangerous history and revolutionary spark associated with that mysterious title.
The scene shifts to the grandeur of the imperial ball, filled with the empire's elite.
Guests gossip about Freya's bold decision to attend the season's first major social event.
Nobles mockingly speculate that Freya is inviting further humiliation by showing her face in public.
Rumors circulate that her divorce trial will end quickly, leaving her with absolutely nothing. A sharp black heel steps onto the carpet, signaling a dramatic and unexpected arrival. Silence falls over the ballroom as a mysterious, elegantly dressed woman commands everyone's attention. The guests are left speechless by the sheer beauty and poise of the approaching lady.
Detailed jewelry catches the light, reflecting the sophisticated taste of the highborn guest.
Freya appears in a stunning black gown, radiating a new sense of power and grace.
The choice of black is a revolutionary statement, challenging the established norms of noble fashion.
Narrative text explains that black was historically a color reserved only for the Empire's men.
Spectators compare her striking appearance to the Queen of the Night as she enters. The crowd wonders if this confident woman is truly the same person they once ridiculed.
Freya remains unbothered by the whispers, her focused gaze fixed on her primary objective. The royal family watches from above as the atmosphere in the hall shifts dramatically. From a distance, the couple stands together at the base of the grand staircase. A silent, tense confrontation occurs as Freya locks eyes with the orange-haired princess.
The weight of the moment is felt by everyone present in the sun-drenched ballroom.
Freya observes the princess, knowing her rival covets the title of the ball's most beautiful flower.
Executing a flawless curtsy, Freya demonstrates her perfect command of imperial etiquette and status.
The princess looks down with a cold, superior smile as she acknowledges Freya's formal greeting. Addressing the gathered nobles, the princess speaks of the Empire's glory and the ongoing war. Composed and silent, Freya carefully analyzes her opponent's public posturing from her position below. The nobility continues to murmur, captivated by the unexpected transformation of the Blanc daughter.
Narrative text emphasizes the incredible change in Freya's aura since her previous social appearances.
Fine details of her hair and accessories signify her transition into a true lady of power.
Freya reflects on how long it took to finally stand opposite the orange-haired princess. Thoughts turn to the figures who drove Max to despair, including the son who betrayed him.
She recalls Duke Blanc, who trampled Max for years and stole the Roussel family business.
Freya identifies the Marquis and the greedy Imperial Master as those responsible for the past's misery.
Despite her anger, Freya decides to wait until she is fully prepared to strike her enemies.
A voice calling her name pulls Freya back from her dark memories to the present moment. Max takes Freya's hand, leading her into a dance amidst a soft backdrop of roses. Freya looks up at her husband with a genuine smile as they move together gracefully. A close-up of their synchronized steps highlights the perfect harmony of the couple's captivating dance. The pair dances in the center of the hall, becoming the focus of every noble's attention. Onlookers admit the couple's relationship no longer looks one-sided, as previously rumored by society. Max and Freya look intently at one another, their connection undeniable to the watching crowd.
Freya thinks to herself how much Max has changed lately as they share this moment.
The scene flashes back to earlier that day when Max entered Freya's room to depart. Freya turned to face him, revealing her stunning black gown and shocking the blonde man. In a humorous moment, Freya asks if she looks strange, while Max remains completely speechless. The blonde maid exclaims in shock as she holds out a black dress for her madam. A letter describes Madame Mafia as an outlaw of the aristocracy, pure in appearance but dark within. The man explains they decided to take a risk to dress her in the colors she deserves. Freya stands in her stunning black gown, looking slightly nervous as Max approaches from behind. Catching sight of him in the mirror, Freya calls out Max's name as he stands behind her. Freya turns with a surprised expression as she notices something unexpected about her husband's presence. Max surprises Freya by reaching around her neck to fasten a beautiful jeweled necklace. A close-up shows Freya's hand touching the large green gemstone Max just placed on her. Max leans in close to Freya's shoulder, his proximity causing her to startle slightly.
Max whispers to Freya Roussel that she is the most beautiful flower present at the ball.
Max takes Freya's gloved hand in his as they prepare to make their formal appearance.
Blushing deeply, Freya looks up at her husband with a genuinely happy and sparkling expression. Duke Blanc stands among the other nobles at the imperial ball, his presence commanding and stoic. The orange-haired duke offers a satisfied smirk while observing the guests from a distance. Narrative text conveys a desire to present the image of a loving couple for the night. Max gazes forward with a calm and collected demeanor, listening to the proposal for their facade. Max asks why she wants this, and Freya explains her goal to erase her negative reputation before divorcing. Freya gives Max a brilliant, blushing smile while they hold hands in the center of the hall. Max reflects on the irony of her request for a loving image after rejecting his earlier kindness. The couple moves gracefully through the ballroom, drawing the eyes of every noble in the room.
Max remarks that a truly loving husband would likely feel a bit jealous under these circumstances.
In a humorous moment, Chibi Max holds Freya close while looking around with suspicious eyes.
Approaching the orange-haired man, Freya formally addresses him as her father and offers her thanks.
A close-up shows Freya placing her gloved hand into the open palm of her waiting father.
Duke Blanc asks if she is attending to reclaim her family name as a daughter of Blanc. Freya declines as she recalls her father's past ultimatum to choose between his family and her marriage. Narrative text confirms she chose Roussel, and her father told her to return only without that name.
The father and daughter dance together, their movements synchronized and elegant in the bright ballroom. Freya politely acknowledges her father's presence as they continue their dance in front of the guests.
Duke Blanc smiles at his daughter, stating that if she is satisfied, then it is enough.
Narrative text notes her father always let her do as she pleased, even becoming Freya Roussel.
Freya reflects that she previously misunderstood her father's intentions, thinking she wasn't precious to him.
She realizes that her father had his own silent and distant way of showing his love.
Facing her father, Freya declares that she is currently satisfied with her life and her choices. Freya internally hopes that her father is hurt less by the betrayal she is planning.
A blonde noblewoman looks on with a pleasant smile, her appearance sophisticated and highborn.
The gray-haired man comments on Freya's sharp aura and asks if she reminds the lady of someone. He mentions someone who fought the Empress 10 years ago, but the blonde lady silences him.
The woman looks shocked and gasps as she realizes the weight of the man's comparison.
The man reflects on Freya's plan to smile at her father while joining the Revolutionary Army.
In a memory, Freya offers to create a revolutionary spark if the commander helps save her husband. The commander rants about being used as a personal errand boy for advertisements and legal blocks.
He reports that she dragged him to the ball to witness her challenge the Empress's power.
Freya looks off with a focused, serious expression as she navigates the dangerous social environment.
Watching her, the man smiles and thinks to himself that the lady is certainly not human.
Narrative text confirms that the man eventually took her hand despite his lingering doubts. Max stands tall, his blonde hair catching a light as he looks over at the other guests.
A dark-haired man in a purple suit speaks with Max, their expressions calm and formal.
Max explains his wife wanted to attend together, while the other man suggests she must have been lonely.
Max firmly tells the man they intend to attend often now, so there is no need to worry.
Earl Tristan admits the lady is beautiful, but confesses to feeling jealous of Max tonight.
Max remains silent, his expression unreadable as he absorbs the Marquise's provocative comment.
Earl Tristan prompts Max to recall a specific moment from their shared past.
Max gazes at the other man with a cold, focused intensity during their tense exchange.
The scene shifts back in time to the events of Duke Blanc's 8th birthday celebration.
Young Earl Tristan approaches young Max, identifying him and offering to let him join them. The young blonde boy stares back with a somber and detached expression.
Young Max declines the invitation, explaining that he is already waiting for a companion.
Young Earl Tristan's eyes narrow as he reacts to the unexpected rejection from the boy.
Back in the present, narrative text reflects on how luck is sometimes granted to the unqualified.
Earl Tristan remarks that judgment is not a power reserved exclusively for the divine.
The black-haired man asks Max to clarify exactly what Freya Blanc means to him.
Max smirks, questioning if he is truly obligated to discuss his wife with the Marquis.
A single word hangs in the dark atmosphere, signifying the weight of the social title.
Earl Tristan reflects on how irritating it is that the Marquis addresses her as Freya Blanc. In a flashback, young Max kneels before young Freya, fighting an impulse to vanish with her.
Clenching his fist, Max wonders why he's acting so strangely regarding the young lady.
Returning to the ballroom, Max offers a polite smile while navigating the dangerous social waters.
The two men stand together in the grand hall, maintaining a facade of noble civility.
Freya walks away from her father, moving across the red carpet toward the other guests. Earl Tristan addresses Freya formally, while Max acknowledges the Marquis with a sharp, cold greeting.
A gloved hand reaches out to meet another, signaling a transition in the social dance.
Max watches from a distance as Earl Tristan leads Freya through the crowded ballroom.
A close-up of marching boots emphasizes the purposeful and rigid movements of the noble guests. Standing back to back, Max reflects on the binding promise not to tarnish the Blanc family name.
Tangled branches against a pale sky represent the complex and suffocating nature of imperial politics. The opulent architecture of the ballroom remains a silent witness to the evening's hidden agendas.
Earl asks when Freya will ask her question, but she claims to have discovered the answer. Max and Freya share a private, intense look, their proximity heightening the tension between them. Freya realizes that if she were truly curious, she would have investigated Max's business affairs directly.
Flashback text explains how the Marquis and her father manipulated stocks to destroy Max's company.
Shadowy figures illustrate how the Marquis stole the railway business under the guise of helping Max.
Observing Max's bold behavior tonight, Freya wonders why he is acting so differently this time.
Freya reflects on Max's recent actions, including their meetings and his attendance at the ball.
A dark, foreboding energy surrounds Freya as she grows increasingly suspicious of Max's hidden motives.
The scene shifts to the exterior of the mansion as the long night finally comes to an end. Max tells Freya to rest and she agrees, noting her exhaustion from the evening's events.
Freya bids Max a formal goodnight, watching him walk away through the dimly lit hallway.
The blonde maid encourages her madam to head inside and get some well-deserved rest.
Inside the spacious bedroom, the maid helps Freya begin the process of retiring for the night.
A close-up highlights the fine details of Freya's long, wavy brown hair as she prepares for bed.
Freya suddenly stands up, prompting the startled maid to ask where she is going so late.
Soft knocking sounds echo against a large door, breaking the silence of the quiet mansion.
Dressed in her nightgown, Freya stands outside Max's door, hesitating in the middle of the night.
She wonders if Max has already fallen asleep after the exhausting and uncomfortable Imperial Ball.
Deciding that his silence is for the best, Freya turns to leave the hallway and return home. The door suddenly swings open, catching Freya by surprise as she was about to walk away.
Max appears in the doorway, dressed casually, and asks his wife what she needs from him.
Freya begins to ask a question but stops, noticing the distinct smell of alcohol on Max.
Max gazes down at her with a heavy, intense look that leaves the atmosphere thick with tension.
From his desk, the blonde man bluntly commands the lady to ask her question.
Recalling his visible frustration at the palace, she asks what event soured his mood.
Max suggests her late-night arrival in a nightgown was an attempt to offer him physical comfort.
Stunned by his forward remark, Freya stands frozen while clutching her light robes. In a frantic, cartoonish panic, the lady desperately tries to clarify that she has no such intentions.
As he steps closer, the narrative notes his realization that she would never actually initiate such intimacy.
He questions if this interaction falls outside the scope of the marital duties she previously mentioned. Max suddenly pulls her close, sparking a sense of déjà vu as she reacts in shock. The blonde man gazes down at her with a heavy, unblinking intensity that fills the quiet room. Looking up at him, Freya's eyes are wide with a mixture of confusion and sudden realization.
A close-up captures the tension in her expression as she remains locked in his close proximity.
Max's face is slightly flushed from the alcohol as he maintains his focused and unwavering stare.
Freya firmly objects, stating that their first night together shouldn't happen under these specific circumstances.
Max expresses his desire for their first night to be a perfect and meaningful occasion.
He notes that it should be an unforgettable experience that they both cherish forever.
Releasing her hand, he decides that tonight is not the right time for such a commitment.
Max's gaze softens slightly, though the underlying tension of his hidden thoughts remains visible.
A faint, melancholy smile touches his lips as he accepts her rejection of the moment. After she notes his intoxication, Max asks if she plans to join Earl Tristan after their divorce. Freya is visibly shaken by the blunt question about her intentions regarding the other nobleman.
Clenching her hand, she reflects on how successfully she managed to improve her reputation that day.
Narrative text suggests that her recent show of sincerity will likely ensure a smooth business cooperation. Despite her perceived success, a sense of unease lingers as she wonders if her efforts were sufficient. Max stands before her, asking if her ultimate goal is truly for him to let her go. Freya offers a small, bittersweet smile, hinting at the complex emotions behind her silence. Without providing a clear answer, the lady turns and begins walking toward the door. Watching her depart, Max's expression is clouded with a deep sense of sadness and regret.
He stops her with a final searching question, asking what his role actually is in her life. Silently repeating his name, Freya continues walking away without looking back at her husband.
Left alone in the dimly lit hall, Max stares into the distance as the weight of the evening settles.
A heavy door clicks shut, punctuating the finality of their conversation and their separation for the night. She compares her happy facade from the ball to the somber reality of her current internal state. Max hides his face in his hand, appearing overwhelmed by the emotional conflict of their relationship. Standing alone in the hallway, the lady pauses to collect her thoughts after the intense encounter.
A close-up reveals her pained expression as she struggles with the consequences of her calculated actions.
A painting of a man struggling to push a massive boulder serves as a metaphor for her burden. Trembling slightly, the lady fights to maintain her composure in the wake of their difficult exchange. Collapsing to the floor, she whispers that she is okay while hiding her face in her arms. Headlines declare that the ball was a triumph, identifying two beautiful women who dominated social circles. Newspaper text describes the widespread search for the artisan who created the most sensational dresses.
Sporting an elegant hat, Freya smiles while reading about the public's fascination with her attire.
Stepping from a carriage, she anticipates an upcoming event that will revive Max's lingering suspicions.
With a determined look, the lady prepares herself for the new challenges the day will bring.
Several sharp knocks echo through the room, signaling the arrival of an important guest or message. Entering the room, Freya finds Max and several other men gathered around a large desk.
She notices the serious atmosphere as she approaches the group of noblemen in the study.
Addressing the room, she asks if there is a problem requiring her immediate attention.
Max reports that one business amendment passed while another was rejected by the voting body.
The black-haired man suggests they must now anticipate interference and adopt their strategy accordingly.
Marquis Earl Tristan politely bids her farewell as he prepares to depart from the office. Earl Tristan bids a subtle farewell, promising to see Madame Roussel again very soon. Narrative text notes a suspicious glint in his eyes while concealing their secret bank connection. A confident smile plays on her lips as she prepares for the social games ahead. In the study, Auguste reports that the freight bill passed while the passenger bill failed.
Observing from the background, the lady absorbs the news of their mixed business fortunes. Max questions her involvement in the failed bill, while Auguste defends his own silent strategy.
Earl Tristan suggests the bill was rejected based on its merits or a hidden agenda. She reflects that rejecting the freight bill instead would have served their interests much better.
August asks how she persuaded the bank president. Max and the lady share intense glances.
Internal thoughts reveal her belief that events are simply returning to their original expected state.
Auguste wonders if her father sabotaged the bill, a suspicion the blonde man coldly confirms.
The silver-haired man is left completely dumbfounded by the revelation of the Duke's direct interference.
Auguste demands to know what collateral was used, but she claims it was a simple transaction.
Citing her deal with Monsieur Delaporte, she refuses to disclose the terms even to Auguste.
She explains her strategy was to focus only on the bill with a chance of success.
Max observes that she took the initiative regarding his company's affairs without consulting him first.
The blonde man notes her unilateral actions with a mixture of suspicion and growing frustration.
Narration explains she cannot avoid his criticism without revealing her knowledge of the future events. Bowing her head slightly, the lady apologizes for her perceived short-sightedness in handling the negotiations.
Auguste questions if she was truly acting alone or merely following someone else's secret lead.
Auguste asserts his own agency, stating he acted of his own volition without any outside influence.
She admits to overstepping her bounds. Max dismisses her apology with a cynical remark about laws.
Looking away, she acknowledges that he has every reason to doubt her intentions right now.
Max stares at her with heavy eyes, asking where she plans to go next.
She announces her invitation to Blanc Castle, prompting Max to question her foolishness in going. She asks if staying would even restore his trust, leaving the silver-haired man momentarily speechless. Finally relenting, Max tells her to do as she wishes while he remains at his desk. As she turns to depart, the blonde man's icy gaze follows her with silent intensity.
Auguste asks if he is truly going to let the lady leave under such suspicious circumstances.
Max reasons that her talk of divorce proves she is in league with his enemies. He admits he wants her to go so he can see what plot she weaves there.
Auguste reminds him of the Duke's role in his father's ruin and current fraud frame-up.
Max confirms his plan is a trap to confirm her true allegiance once and for all.
A close-up of his boots highlights his rigid resolve to verify her suspected betrayal.
Auguste reports that they have yet to find a solid link between Tristan and the Duke.
Standing by the window, Max remains silent while the silver-haired man watches him with concern.
Auguste warns his boss not to let his irritation with the Marquis distract from the enemy. Max reflects on the person who framed his father and stole the company he built.
Closing his eyes in a moment of pain, the blonde man appears overwhelmed by his mission.
Sunlight bathes the estate as a new day brings a temporary shift in the atmosphere. A delicate hand holds a formal envelope sealed with an ornate golden imperial wax stamp.
She announces an imperial messenger brought tea party invitations for herself, Inez, and Son. Sol reacts with cartoonish shock and excitement, desperately asking to see the unbelievable invitation.
Inez gazes at the letter in her hands, stunned by the sudden summons to the palace.
Sol is moved to tears, recalling a past where he was treated with nothing but contempt.
The red-haired man weeps with joy while Inez comforts him and their benefactor watches on.
Inez asks if the previous proposal still stands. She confirms that it certainly does.
Amidst falling petals and floral patterns, the group prepares to move toward their next objective.
Wearing an elegant dress and a confident smile, she looks toward the challenges of the future.